You are now tuned in to MINDTality, bringing inspiration into your atmosphere through podcasts that inform, educate, and elevate. This month's topic is overcoming grief and loss. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Growth with Portia, a weekly conversation for your personal and professional growth. Here is your host, Portia Booker.
Hey listeners, welcome to Growth with Portia. I'm your host, Portia Booker, and yes, this is my real name. So question for you, did you bring your curious mind today? If so, I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's dive in. This conversation is episode 2 in the part 2 series of honoring my beloved mother, Sharon Lopez, who made her transition from Earth on July 7, 2022. So today I am joined by an artist who is on a mission to create an authentic connection between the artist and audience through inspirational lyrics, bold emotion, and realness, no pun intended, picked up through their life journey. So without further delay, welcome singer and songwriter Lisa E. Williams. How you doing today, Lisa?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. I'm awesome.
Hey, every day is awesome, like the Lego song. Remember that?
Yeah.
Awesome is literally one of my favorite words. I have a friend whose middle name is Awesome, but that's for a whole nother day.
I was gonna say that's awesome. That is great. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's
so
cool.
Lisa, I always love to begin my conversations with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
Just getting up this morning and another chance to make it better. That's exactly what I'm grateful for.
I feel it, because we call our days the present, right? And truthfully, it is because we're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised next week. And so each day gives us that clean slate, right? To either be better than who we were the day before or continue to what I call spin in the hamster wheel of shame of the day before's muck,
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I think that just giving yourself a break too, because a lot of times when I'm driving home, like I kind of think about the day that I've had and what could I've done to make it better for myself or the people that are around me. If I'm leading them that day, what can I do to make their day better? Whether it's the way I reacted to something or I reacted to them. And there's times when I go, gosh, I didn't handle that right. And I might go back the next day and say, you know what, yesterday, I know it's a new day, but I just wanted to apologize if I, made you feel some type of way. Because to me, I think that people don't have enough intuition to sort of feel people's body languages and things like that to see maybe how their day is going. So maybe the way you treat them or speak to them might be something different that you wouldn't normally do on a different day. So I don't know. I just kind of go back and see what could I have done to make that day better.
Well, I love that, Lisa, that you take that time to really hold yourself accountable, right?
Yep.
And Lisa, what would you say it took for you to reach that level of awareness where you hold yourself accountable to where you're like, hey, what could I have done better? Whose life could have improved better, not just my own, but, what could I have done that was not just in my comfort zone, but to help somebody else step out of their comfort zone and step into their authentic self?
I mean, I think that it's just, for me, I felt like it was just age, getting older and wiser, and really thinking about, where your life has been and how maybe you grew up and your environment that you were in. And mine was always a great environment, but, somebody else's environment, I don't know, I feel like I take on people's emotions and then they come out in song. And I think I just learned. I'm always fascinated at how the mind works, and my biggest fascination is people's vulnerability and the lack of people being vulnerable and people actually being vulnerable. So I really think that is, and myself included. So I guess as time and I got older, I just kind of looked at myself and wanted to know how I would react to certain thing, and just really trying to hone in on people's energy. Whether it was a customer standing at the register and their arms are folded, and maybe they're in a hurry, and really trying to really think about how they're feeling about things. And maybe just a word is to them might be just like, hey, how's your day going? Instead of not saying anything to them, So I think it's just a matter of growing up, being older and wiser, and how you want to be treated yourself, you know?
Well, like they say, the golden rule is treat others as you wish to be treated. And
100.
Lisa, I love what you mentioned about vulnerability. Oh
That's
my
my
goodness.
word. That is my
I
word.
Mine too. I think that we live in a society where we preach vulnerability is a sign of strength. But truthfully, let's be honest, a lot of people are not practicing what they preach.
Yes.
Vulnerability is still painted under the umbrella of weakness, the
Yeah.
same like with crying. Like I mentioned to you earlier that I was recording a podcast with a friend earlier. And one
Mhm.
of the things that I talked about was in our society, there's this expectation that crying, showing any type of emotion is deemed weak. But
Yeah.
we're human. We
Yeah.
have feelings. I mean, could you imagine a world where we were all like the Tin Man? Oh, I think we'd be miserable 24
Yeah.
7,
I
365.
agree with that.
But that's for a whole nother day. Lisa, what did it take for you to step into that calling of being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable? Because I think, especially in communities of color, let's be honest,
Mm.
vulnerability is stigmatized the same way as mental health. So
Oh, yeah.
what would you say it took for you to be comfortable being vulnerable and shed that uncomfortableness that comes with being vulnerable?
I think, just different past relationships that I've had. I think that a lot of times the reason for me, what I think about why relationships don't last, whether it's an intimate relationship or just a friendship relationship, is because I think people don't open up and talk about what's really going on with them. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I think and I know I did that myself. And so I know that I didn't want to be that person anymore. And so I just really try to be very open as best as I can. There's some things that I'm not vulnerable about, but I know that I want to be what I have to say. I want it to be heard and be able to say it in a safe space. And so I surround myself with people that I know I can be vulnerable with. Even with my parents, I didn't feel like I could do that before, but I can do it now. If I need something or if I feel something, I can tell them, and they are open to listen to what I have to say. So it's the three words are open, honest, and vulnerable, and I think that's the key
Mm.
to long lasting friendships, relationships. If you can be that in those spaces with people that you feel safe with, to be able to be vulnerable, and I think that's the key, is being in the safe space.
Cool. Open, honest, and vulnerable. I love that, Lisa. And I think people need a refresher on that. It
Mm.
seems that we've reached a point in our life, in our society today, where openness is met with closed mindedness,
Yeah.
vulnerability is met with you're too weak,
Hmm.
and honesty is buried with
Mm. Yeah.
dishonest.
Yeah.
And it's like we live in an oxymoronic life
Mm.
when you think about it, because it seems that everything is opposite to what it is.
Right.
We say that we want truth, but when we serve the truth,
Mm.
what I often hear is, oh, I wasn't ready for that. Well, what were you ready for? What? I mean,
Right.
it pickles and cucumbers are not the same.
Right. It's
You're
a good
not gonna
analogy.
get, it's tomatoes and ketchup are not the same.
Right. Right.
So it's
Right.
like, what do you mean? So Lisa, for you, what do you think it will take for us as a society to reach that point of being more direct, being more open, being more honest, and being more vulnerable, and feeling as though we have that safe space to, share our authentic self? What do you think it will take for us to reach that pivotal point in our society today?
I think that the biggest thing is that, everybody wants to be the change, but they want their change to be the one that's on top. And by that I
Mm,
mean,
mm.
they really want to change, but uh, they want it's listening to people's pain and really listen to what their pain points are. And that's why there's such a push and pull with people having conversations and trying to solve problems, whatever it is, whether it's world leaders, whatever it is. But I think that people just don't want to hear other people's pain, and so they talk over, but they want their solution to be the one that changes, that makes that light switch go off. And I think that's until we can get to a place where everybody's open and vulnerable about what they really need, or how they got hurt, or how this hurt them in the past, and try to find a solution for that, it's going to be tough to get to a point where even this world, this nation can really come together. And I think it's a sad thing, but there's still some beauty into trying to get to that point. If you can try to reach somebody through vulnerability, and then listening to them as well, and being able to understand whatever their pain points are, whatever subject it is, whether it's race, whether it's mental health. Because with mental health, people always get over it, because if you don't have cancer and you don't see lesions or whatever on you, it's not real. Like if some older person parks in the handicap and they have a handicap sticker, but they get out of the car, they can walk. You're not disabled. You don't know what their disability is. And I think that's the biggest misstep that we have in life, that they want to see your illness or your disability or your mental health issue, and to visualize that it's actually real. And I think that's just a sad state of affairs that we're still in with mental health. So I don't know if I answered that question or not, but
no, one of the things that you really just said was so profound, that we have to see in order to validate.
Right. Yeah.
Me and my friend were just having a discussion about addiction and mental health. And I know that some people tend to put both of these things in two separate categories.
Yeah.
But to me, addiction is the physicalness of a underlying mental health related challenge.
Right. Yeah.
Versus if you have, say, a depression or bipolar or schizophrenia or any other anxiety, you may not, quote unquote, exhibit something, quote unquote, physical that people can recognize.
Right.
Because we've all had bouts of anxiety plague us at one point. I mean,
sure.
Look at when we go to a job interview, our palms are sweating like we could literally water a whole desert.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Yeah.
We've all had moments of depression when we've been, plagued with grief, and that, and we'll get into that later on. But I mean, let's be honest, grief really is a whirlwind of emotions that you're going to experience. And so I think we need to find that openness again in society, where we don't always need, quote unquote, physical proof.
Yeah.
If somebody tells you they're depressed, hear them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's people who have functional depression. They're not always laying under 8 blankets for 9 days at a time. Some people go to work, they take care of their families, they go to the grocery store. But then it's those after hours when everybody's asleep, the world is still, is where they're hit with the whirlwind of their emotions, of the sadness, of the grief.
Yeah. I agree 100%. Yep. That's the quiet times. I know when I'm depressed, a lot of times I don't even realize it, but I'll sleep on the couch. I got a big old 2-bedroom condo by myself, and I'll sleep on the couch for 3 or 4 days. And I know that that's an issue, So it's, you're right, because you're trying to do a lot. But again, that goes back to vulnerability and really telling people what you need to help you through this,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we just need to be more vocal and be more transparent, because I've found that my vulnerability has led me into more doors of opportunity than being closed off. And so we're going to take our first quick break right here on Groove Portia. Everybody stick with us. We will be right back.
Hey stranger, you new here? Well, so am I. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Portia Booker, is known as Portia the Producer, and I'm your host and executive producer of Guru Portia talk radio show and podcast. So what exactly is Guru Portia? Guru Portia is a platform that I created for individuals to find their groove and share how they overcame adversity and found an opportunity. You can catch a new episode of Guru Portia every Monday and Wednesday on any major podcast platform. So, question for you. Are you ready to go from a breakdown to a breakthrough? Well, if you're ready to get started, let's dive in.
All right, everybody, welcome back right here on Groove with Portia. I'm joined remotely with singer-songwriter Lisa Williams. We were just having a great conversation about vulnerability and how to shift our mindset to an open, honest, and transparent life. So, Lisa, let's be honest here. I've heard, like, when you begin on a music journey, I feel like music is a form of like spirituality to me. And, you know, when you begin on that music journey, I've heard that the instrument picks the owner. So how did you determine the guitar was, no pun intended, the right pick for you?
I like that. I have a cousin that played guitar. You know, when we used to go to California and visit them, and he played this electric guitar. He used to play with he played with Mickey Howard and Natalie Cole and people like that. And I was always in awe of that, you know. And so my dad would buy me this imitation electric guitar, and I learned from that. So it picked me through that. And so that's how I picked up the guitar. And I'm actually left-handed, but I play the guitar right-handed. And I think, you know, when you're doing the air guitar and the mirror and everything, and so I think that's just the way I picked it up. So I play right-handed, you know.
And so, Lisa, did you maybe get exposed to other instruments prior to picking the guitar as your instrument of choice? Like, did you maybe have an interest in piano or the drums or the whirlwind, the woodwinds? What would you say? Anything else was in that?
No, it was always the guitar. And it was like, I love the Beatles and James Taylor's. It was always that acoustic guitar that drew me in, because you didn't have to plug it up or anything. You could take it anywhere with you and you could play it anywhere. So I think that's what, you know, sort of, you know, solidified me playing that instrument.
And so, Lisa, when you're working on your music, I'm always curious because singers, songwriters, each of them have their flow per se to, you know, creating their craft or honing in on a song or whatever, a beat. And so when you're working on your music, do you find that the lyrics comes first or the melody comes first or vice versa? What's your creative process?
It's a different, you know what, I was thinking about this the other day. It's different every time. So a lot of times I'll just pick up the guitar and I'll just start playing a melody or something, and then words will come, and then I'm like, I gotta push the record, because you think you're gonna remember what you're saying or how you sang it, and you don't. And so so it's just different every time. I might just start typing some words in the computer, and you know, then I'll go back to those lyrics and add them to that melody or whatever. So it's different every time. And so it's just and it depends on what's happening in my life or somebody else's life. I've written a lot of songs about divorce and people, you know, trying to figure out what they want to do with their life and in their relationship. So it just depends. It's just different every time. No set process.
So, Lisa, I got to ask the obvious question. How much time would you say that you spend on average a day honing in on your craft? I've heard that a lot of veteran musicians will spend minimum 3 to 4 hours at a time a day on their craft. Like, they'll probably break it up, but what would you say is your average amount of time that you spend really with your guitar, with your emotions? What does that look like for you?
Oh gosh, I mean, it could be 2-3 hours a day. It could be, if I'm going for a 45-minute walk, it could be, you know, it could be 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Sometimes I'll just, you know, just sit with my guitar and strum and strum and strum, and then I'll go to the recorder and put that strum into my workstation, and then I'll start maybe building a track. So it could be, sometimes it's still 2 or 3 in the morning, you know. So it just varies, whatever emotional state I'm in, I guess, you know.
And do you find, Lisa, that depending on the emotional state, whether you're kind of in that depressed state or a more jovial, upbeat, happy, do you find that that dictates how much time you spend? And do you also notice a more heightened creative flow when you're in that depressed state, or more when you're in the depressed state? I mean, more when you're in the happy state.
Oh, it's definitely more than the depressed state. I have a writers group that I go to every Monday night, and I said, here comes Lisa with her morose songs, and they always love them. You know what I mean? Because it's just so raw, and it's so crazy. And a lot of times those songs are not about me or my life; it's about other people who have been going through some stuff. So it's definitely more heightened during this sort of, depressed state, if you will. And I have to say I love it because something always comes out beautiful from that, for me.
And so, Lisa, when you're playing your guitar, I'm sure that you have like your warm-up songs that you sing before you really get into the flow and the groove. Is there a particular artist who really you resonated with, when you first began and to this day? I would say listening to your songs, I get more of a Tracy Chapman vibe.
I mean, definitely, she was I don't know that she was an influence per se, but I definitely, I listened to her stuff. Fast Car will always be a classic for me. Just such a classic song. And then like always, like old school James Taylor, just something that's so subtle and just a beautifully guitar picking or whatever. And so any of that stuff that I kind of go back to and try to use as a reference track, so if you will, in my mind about maybe how I want something to sound or whatever. But it's anything that's like old James Taylor, modern Tracy Chapman. Those are the sort of my go-to people,
Now, I will admit, I am a Tracy Chapman fan. My great grandmother used to always sing, "Give me one reason to stay here."
Yeah.
And when I hear the lyrics still to this day, I chuckle because I think of my great grandmother. And the same with Fast Car. I do love Fast Car. I love the lyrics. The lyrics are just so beautiful because it reminds you of those movies where you're young and you're at that pivoting point in your life where you're like, I'm tired of what I'm doing. I'm not happy. I'm limited on money, but I know that I have a dream that I need to chase. And that's what I always think of with Fast Car.
Yeah, it's certainly like fall's my favorite time of year. It's certainly a convertible drop top down, which is your best friend or your girlfriend or whatever, just driving down, you're singing the chorus together. And those are kind of songs that just really are just timeless. That song will be forever timeless, That's such a great song.
Oh, 100%. I agree.
Yeah.
When I am practicing for any podcast that I'm about to do or show recordings, I pick a different song to sing each time.
Oh,
and
wow.
Fast Car is one of the ones that I'll pick from.
Yeah.
I'll either do Fast Car or The Fray, How to Save a Life,
or
I love
them,
Daughtery or Nickelback. It just depends on one, my emotion. Two, obviously how long it's been since I've practiced, because sometimes I'm recording 6 or 7 shows a week, but then I'll take a break for like a week and I'm like, my vocals are a little bit on the, rusty end. So I got to put some WD-40 or something on there to get them to work.
Yeah, that's cool that we like a lot of the same stuff. That's good. That's good stuff. Yeah.
And Lisa, for you, obviously you play guitar, you've been playing for quite some time. What's your preference, acoustic or electric, or is it mostly acoustic for you?
Oh, it's definitely mostly acoustic. I mean, I had an electric and I just sold it like a few months back. I mean, just for me, it just adds a different tone to a song or whatever, but I'm definitely acoustic. So I have like 3 acoustic guitars right now.
And do you prefer just the straight acoustic or acoustic electric?
If I'm playing out, I like the acoustic electric, but if I'm here, I like to mic the guitar because the wood just sounds so much better and cleaner when there's no electronics added to it, So yeah.
Oh, 100%. I agree with that. I love a nice little hum that you hear from a regular acoustic. And Lisa, let's talk about that. When you are out performing, how did you learn to overcome kind of like that stage fright and nervousness? How did you learn to convert that energy into excitement?
It's so crazy. I played at a coffee house a few months back. And I was like, man, I can't believe I'm still nervous. And I guess then the audience just comes to you and just like, ooh, you got this. You know what I mean? You just kind of let it sit back. And a lot of times I'll just take a deep breath and I'll close my eyes and I'll just start playing. And then that's it. So it's really just a meditative thing in your own mindset. It's just like, you got this. You just close your eyes and just play and just tell the story. And that's how I do it.
So you play with your eyes closed still.
Oh yeah.
And I find that so interesting because I've heard another singer tell me that when someone is performing, if they sing with their eyes closed, they're literally opening up their vulnerable side.
That's good to know. I didn't realize that. But I did have somebody tell me once, "Oh, you didn't connect with the people because you didn't look at them." I just can't do it. I can do it afterwards, and I can have a conversation and tell them about the song beforehand. But I just have to close my eyes, and I'm just like, I'm just in on my own space, and then they can feed off that however they like to feed off of that. But I just keep my eyes closed. So yeah.
Well, and then you're in your element of genius, right? I mean, even for me, sometimes, like when I'm doing certain activities, like I'm a writer, sometimes I write my best work or do my best work with my eyes closed. Or when I'm not trying to write, because I do a lot of voice to text on my phone or like my tablet when I'm doing little things, preparing for speeches, for example.
Yeah.
If I'm preparing for a speech, I can't always just sit at a computer and type out the words. There's like I'm old school Lisa. I'm somebody who prefers the old fashioned pen to paper.
Yeah.
Versus trying to type a story on a computer. I don't feel that connection. I need that concreteness of a pen to paper, that scent of the ink going across whatever type of paper, whether it's parchment, whether it's paper from all the way in Jesus' time, whatever it is, I need that connection.
Yeah.
Because that's what, to me, helps to utilize all of my senses, each and every one. And I think it's the same with you when you're performing on stage. When your eyes are closed, you're taking in the full environment. It's a coffee shop, right? But you can smell, obviously, the fresh brew of the coffee roast, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You can take in the vibe of the people who are coming in and who are listening, if they're snapping or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think to me, it's quite profound. Well, I don't know if there's a different vibe, truthfully, that is given off for somebody who can perform with their eyes closed. Because I almost wonder, like, how do you stay focused?
That helps me stay focused because you're in your own head. You're just, you know what I mean? I don't have to look at the guitar to see what the chords I'm playing because I know it. So it just really, it's something about that, When I listen to music sometimes, I'm here by myself, the lights are off and I have my eyes closed and I'm listening to music. Same thing. So yeah.
Well, and they say, music heals the soul, and sometimes you need everything else around you to go dark in order to spring forth the light that is still going, even though it might be a little turned down, but it's still there. So I definitely agree with that 100%, Lisa. Well, we're going to take another quick break right here on Group Portia. Everybody stick with us. We will be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back right here on Group Portia. I'm joined remotely with singer-songwriter Lisa Williams, and we were just having a great conversation, of course, about her musical flow and how she, no pun intended, finds her groove when she's playing her guitar, when she's out at coffee shops and all that great stuff. And so, Lisa, for our listeners, if they are interested in connecting with you and learning more about you, is there a website or social media handle you can share with us today?
Yeah, so my Instagram is 1.8 films. And my Twitter is at Lisa E Music. So if you want to reach me, I'd love to hear from folks. I always like to connect with people and talk and see what's going on in life. So yeah.
Yeah, so everybody, you can connect with Lisa at your leisure on Instagram or Twitter, whatever glitters your fancy, or no pun intended, whatever is your pick to to socialize. So, Lisa, let's dive into your music. I really want to talk about your song, Set Me Free. And when I first heard it, Lisa, I had to actually stop it after 30 seconds of hearing it because I could feel the emotions within myself springing forward. And a lot of people know, as I've mentioned in the very beginning of this show, that I'm doing this series to honor my mom who passed away on July 7th of this year. And so I felt the heaviness, I felt the strong emotions. So I got to ask Lisa, what was going on when this song came from a vision into fruition where you needed to be set free?
Well, again, I always say this, a lot of songs I write about other people, but I had a friend of mine that was going through anxiety, and I have a friend that has a problem with addiction that I've known since he was a kid, and he's still going through that. And there was a book called An Unquiet Mind by Kay Jamison. And so the line, an angry heart, an unquiet mind, because your mind is always going, trying to figure out what is going on and why these voices. And I get them too. So when I'm going through depression, when I get them too, you're trying to figure out, why can't the words that are trying to destroy you be something that's trying to, make you stronger. And so that was that line, is why can't my words be, words that can, set me free. And then these voices tell you, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not that. And when I wrote that song, after I listened to it, I know a lot of it pertains to me because I'm writing it and it's coming out of me. But initially it was about these two young people that I know that were having a rough time. And so when I go back and listen to it, it's really about all of us that are struggling with voices that have made us think of ourselves in a different way, and we want to be better. And so that's kind of where that song got birth from.
Lisa, I can resonate with that. I mean, as someone who has also done and dealt with my own mental health journey, I mean, even now in the grief process that I'm in, of finding that balance of maintaining my own mental well-being and also going through the grief process in a as healthy way as possible. I can resonate with that because sometimes I just want to be set free of these heavy emotions, of all the people telling me things will get better, it's a great loss, all the other guilt that people tend to unintentionally place upon me.
Yeah.
So I can definitely relate to wanting of being set free of the hurt, of the heaviness that tends to plague us on a 24/7 basis at times, right?
Yeah.
Because we wake up, we go to work, we're in that, like I said, the hamster wheel of shame, some of us 24/7. And where is that break? Where do we get set free from the noise of society to be able to really hear our own voice and find peace and comfort?
Well, it's strange because, I don't know if I told you this, my mom died when I was 6 months old, and there's still a huge longing for that relationship, even though, I was raised by my stepmother, that's all the mother I ever known. And sometimes, that even her being not here for 59 years, it's still a grief point for me, and I guess most of it is just not knowing enough about her and her family, because when she passed, my father never kept in touch with her family, so I don't know any of that. And so there are times when I, that sort of, plagues my mind from time to time, but and you want to be set free from those things as well. And so, It's just an ongoing journey of trying to figure out a way to reconcile that and maybe put it in a place where it isn't so painful, you know?
Lisa, I love what you just brought up about that grief of a childhood that you didn't have with your
Mm,
biological mother. And I think that's something that's a unique path of grief that we don't talk about, right? We talk about grief in the sense of what is presently transpired, right? Whether
mm,
it's a loved one who is transitioned, like my mother, or that job promotion that we got overlooked for, getting fired from a job, a relationship
mm,
ending, but not so much the grief of not having a relationship or having the childhood that could have been because this person had already finished their assignment while
right.
you were on the scene. And
Yeah.
so, Lisa, for you, for our listeners who are tuning in, how can they begin to heal from that grief of a life that they didn't have? What does that look like for them? Is it divulging into creative crafts such as singer songwriter, or really being like what we talked about, open, honest, and transparent? How can people begin to heal from that, Lisa?
I guess the first step is recognizing whatever that hurt is, and you know, whether it's and recognizing it, maybe going to therapy or writing, and like you said, you were talking about writing things down. It's more, it feels real and solid and anchored when you're writing it on a piece of paper. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
if that's what helps you get through it. But I do think that really trying to recognize what that pain is, because sometimes the pain is masked and you act it out in a different way, whether it's alcohol or just anger or whatever. So you got to make sure that you understand what your pain points are and working through that. So that's through therapy, that's through songwriting, that's through just writing in a journal and getting it out and writing a letter to yourself or writing a letter to the person that's deceased, and just having that letter. Any of those things can maybe be a turning point to figuring out how to move past it.
Lisa, I love how you brought up about writing a letter and taking action, right? Instead
Mhm.
of continuing to let those thoughts fester and obviously come out as your body aching and different things like
Mm,
that. I shared this on the podcast that I was a guest on today, where I talked about the gratefulness and gratitude of the life of my mother. Like, yeah, it pains me that my mom will not be able to walk me down the aisle if I ever get married.
mhm,
My mom won't be able to meet her grandchildren if I ever do have kids. And what gives me a sense of comfort, Lisa, is that the day that my mom made her transition, I got a good 5-10 minutes with her before things kind of went downhill.
mhm,
And I told her, I said, Ma, I want to thank you. I thank you for giving me life. I
mm,
thank you for being my cheerleader when I couldn't cheer for myself. I thank you for always encouraging me to pursue my dreams when everybody else laughed at me. And I
mm,
said, the one thing that I always want you to remember is I wouldn't want to call anybody else mommy but you.
mm,
And, I don't know what made me, Lisa, record that on my phone. Because right after I told my mom that, my mom said, that means my job is done.
mm,
Thank you, darling.
mm,
So even though for some that may appear to be a bittersweet moment, but for me, that's what gives me comfort
yeah.
to not fall into the pit of grieving the future
Mm,
of my mom not being physically present for some of these milestones within
yeah.
my life that are going to happen.
Mhm,
Even right now, as I'm in the grief process, Lisa, I find more comfort most times in writing. I find really pouring my emotions
mm,
into something creative. I mean, I've always wanted to be an author.
Yeah.
always since I was a little kid. And now I've submitted my first short story for publication.
Nice.
I'm also working on 2 books. I mean,
That's great. Yeah.
I think we almost need to look at grief as a window of opportunity
Mm.
instead of us continuing to take on what I call the societal prescription of
Oh.
grief as doom, gloom,
Mhm.
it's bad, all the emotions are too heavy. I think we need to change our mindset and look at grief as truly a window of opportunity for our best benefit.
Mm. I love that. I love that. Yeah, because it could be a strong catalyst to move you forward. And they say the same thing about fear. It's just strong catalyst to move you forward, or have you complete something. And the other piece I wanted to say, my stepmother, and again, she's the only mother I ever know. We kind of had a rocky relationship, throughout our years, but this pandemic, boy, I tell you, and I decided that I was going to accept her for who she was. This is how she is. This is her. But I don't know, through this pandemic, she became a completely different person. I mean, I think she's told me I love you more than she ever has in my entire adult life. She texts me every day, little emojis, heart emojis. So that was a blessing too, so yeah, emotions and grief is a powerful thing within ourselves. And I think you're right that it can move you forward and be a catalyst for your own greatness.
Yes, I think we can either let grief imprison us or find a purpose
Yeah.
within the grief process.
Mm.
So we're going to take another quick break right here on Group Portia. Everybody stick with us. We will be right back.
Hey stranger, you new here? Well, so am I. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Portia Booker, is known as Portia the Producer, and I'm your host and executive producer of Guru Portia Talk Radio Show and Podcast. So what exactly is Guru Portia? Guru Portia is a platform that I created for individuals to find their groove and share how they overcame adversity and found an opportunity. You can catch a new episode of Guru Portia every Monday and Wednesday on any major podcast platform. So, question for you. Are you ready to go from a breakdown to a breakthrough? Well, if you're ready to get started, let's dive in.
All right, everybody, welcome back right here on Group Portia. Well, Lisa, I thank you so much for coming on and sharing with our listeners, 1, your vulnerability, 2, how you've been able to convert and channel your emotions into something beautiful, such as being a singer-songwriter, and 3, giving our listeners another avenue to look at grief and also make their life better. I thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, Lisa, I know we've touched on this a lot throughout the conversation about mental health. I mean, you wear so many hats, Lisa. I mean, obviously, you're a caregiver of your father and your stepmother. Obviously, you're a singer-songwriter. You also probably have some other responsibilities. So, Lisa, how do you prioritize your mental well-being and find that balance between your passion and love of music and giving people that connection between the artist and the audience, and also maintaining your mental wellness?
Well, I read this book called Boundaries a few months back, and one of the things you have to learn to do, and myself included, is to really learn how to set boundaries. And it's okay to say no to things. It's okay. And you have to I don't do guilt very well, so I really try to set boundaries for myself. And it was hard. It's still hard sometimes, but sometimes you just have to say no. And it's okay if, most people are okay with that. And if they're not, then that's still okay. But the biggest thing is to, my mom just texted me, what do you want for dinner? Can you get the mail when you go up? It's to really set boundaries. Like yesterday, I was supposed to go to my parents' house. Like, Mom, I'm not gonna be able to come tonight. She said, that's okay. You know what I mean? But you just have to be able to set boundaries and stick to them for yourself. And I think that's the biggest key, is to try for your own mental health, because it's okay to say no, and it's okay to set boundaries for yourself to keep your mental health in check.
And Lisa, what did it really take for you to stop feeling guilty for saying no? Because I feel like us as women, we fall into that people pleasing wheel of shame,
Yeah.
and we cheat ourselves. We say no to us and yes to everybody else. So what did it take for you to really stand firm in your boundary and look at that as a growth opportunity for you and not care about everybody else's perception of you?
And really just reading that book and putting those things in that book called Boundaries into practice. And sometimes it's hard. It's a challenge, because we are people pleasers. We are ones that's what we want to nurture and take care of everybody else except for ourselves. But really just reading that book and putting the practices that book has given me, to say no, because if someone else can do what you can do as well. And so whether it's work related and your boss wants you to come in late because whatever, or stay late or whatever, yeah, that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. And then most of the times they'll be like, okay. But if you always say yes, they're always going to come to you because they know you're going to say yes. And you just have to let them know that you are now a different person and you have a life that you want to take care of. And so it's really putting into practice those things, setting your boundaries. And it's like an addiction. You're always that person, but you got to put it into practice. And it's hard. And you might fall back, but you got to keep going. So.
Ooh, I love what you said about addiction, because that behavior is a hard cycle to break.
Yep.
Especially if you're accustomed to doing it for 5, 10, your whole life.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people, I think, sometimes fall into that boat of, I've always been this way.
Yes. Yep.
Or my favorite one that Lisa just really grinds my gears to this day is, that's just how they are.
Right. Oh, I hate that too.
And, I'm a firm believer that if that's just how they are, then that's just where they're going to stay.
You're 100% right. Yep.
That's always going to be their boat, and they're stunting their own growth. They're hindering themselves from stepping into their true calling and their purpose. Because I'm a firm believer, especially since after my mom made her transition, I believe that life is about transformation. We're not supposed to stay in the same boat 15, 20 years down the line. I believe that we're all called for a purpose here, and we all know what it is. I believe that we all do. But I think a lot of us are too afraid to embark on our purpose-driven journey because either one, and Lisa, I'm sure you can agree, people don't support it, your family doesn't support it. 2, they don't see the same vision that you do. 3, because nobody else sees that same vision, it's stupid. It's not. Or I've seen this too, where people want the vision and the drive and the talent that somebody else has, instead of finding comfort in their own abilities and skills.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah.
And I think more of us need to just be confident in who we are. We've all been uniquely tailored to make an impact in this world in some way, shape, or form. Lisa, look at you. You've converted your quote unquote mental health challenges into beautiful lyrics.
Yeah.
Music to help people heal. Like they say, music heals the soul.
Yeah. I've had songs, You Heal Me. Songs that you listen to that just break you down and build you right back up, It's just I couldn't I could not live without music. I couldn't do it, you know.
And I think we all need to find that boat again of
Mm,
opportunity. Like we need to be curious children again. I
mm,
think we've lost that ability in our adult life to play, to give ourselves permission to unleash our inner 10-year-old. Like, little digression, Lisa, whenever I travel, I always, when I'm on the plane, I watch Disney Plus. And
mm,
the movie I always watch is Hocus Pocus. That's one of my favorite movies from childhood. And why
mm-hmm.
do I pick that movie? Because Max, Danny, and Allison remind me of me being a 10-year-old. So I'm giving
Mm,
myself permission to
yeah.
have the curiosity and the fearlessness that they have in Hocus Pocus.
Well, I agree with that. It's funny you say that because that's what we do. Like, if you're trying to do something in life and you think you can't do it, what would you tell your
Mhm.
6-year-old self? You know, you tell your 6-year-old self to go for it. You know what I mean? And I think that we, like you said, you have to give ourselves permission to be fearless, to be whatever we want to be. And I think that that's why children are so fearless, so fearless. And then I feel like society corrupts them and tries to make them so fearful of what's going to go on in life and what could possibly happen when just you just look forward and just keep focused on what you want to do. I think you know you'll be fine. But you're right. I think it's allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to be whatever that is. So yeah,
Yes, be the change you wish to see in the world, one step at a time.
that's the magnet on my door.
Lisa, this was a fantastic conversation. I thank you again for coming on and sharing so much food for thought with our listeners today. And we're going to be wrapping up here soon, Lisa. And once again, if our listeners want to connect with you and learn more about you, can you share your social media handles one more time?
Yeah, again, thank you again for having me. This is a great conversation. It's Lisa E Music on Twitter. So it's at Lisa E Music on Twitter. And my website is lisaemusic.com. And I'm saying lisaewilliamsmusic.com. And then my Instagram is 1.8 films on Instagram. So find me. I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Lisa, I always love to save this question for last. What words of inspiration can you leave with our listeners today? Whether it's someone who was once in your same shoes that is still in somewhat of a grief process of the childhood that they didn't have, or if it's someone who wants to change the world by using their craft to build more connection and help other people heal. What words of inspiration, Lisa, can you leave with our listeners today?
The only thing I'll say is always be your authentic self. That's it. Always be your authentic self. That's it.
Hey, short, sweet, and simple. I couldn't agree more because I've found that me being vulnerable has opened more doors of opportunity than if I was trying to continue to put up a front of somebody
Mm,
who I believed that I was supposed to be.
right.
Be authentic, own your calling, and really be true to yourself
Yeah.
because the truth will indeed set you free.
Mm.
Well, everybody, that was singer and songwriter Lisa E. Williams that you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Groove Portia, everybody. Thanks for listening and have a good evening.
An angry heart, an unquiet mind. Words don't make sense inside your head. One more pill, gotta keep them down. It's like holding your breath when you're drowning underwater. Ooh, why can't my words listening. I pray with grace to move them to another place. The words that we've inside out of me, it's the dance between what's real to me and make believe. Why can't my words be words that can free me from all the noise that's in my head? Why can't my words be words that can free me from all the noise that's in my head? Set me free. Time goes slowly by, and I don't wanna live here anymore. Why can't my words be words that can free me from the voices in my head? Voices in my head. From the voices in my head. Voices in my head.
Thank you so much for tuning in. That was Groove with Portia. Catch Groove with Portia on all major podcasting platforms. After the break, we'll be getting to the root of it with host Natashah Khan. Valerie C. Thompson is founder of Own Your Truth and Rise Coaching and Consulting, also known as Valerie the Encourager. She has a tremendous heart for women who are lacking the self-confidence needed to own their truth. It's time to take a leap of faith. That's right, it's time to jump. The truth is, God gave you that specific thought and vision for a reason. You must take action to see the manifestation. You have not acted because you do not believe in yourself. You have been programmed to operate under a limited and negative mindset. It's time to dismantle those lies, own your truth, and rise. There are gifts and talents lying dormant within, waiting to be unwrapped and presented to the masses. You are here for purpose. Valerie provides her clients with support needed to take ownership of their worth and provides them with various strategies to help them move boldly in confidence, gain encouragement to take action, trust what you hear, live the life you were created to live, and say yes to yourself so you can operate in purpose, on purpose, for God's huge purpose. Valerie helps her clients recognize their temporary circumstance as a catalyst for the creation of a new life. If you are looking to transform your life and live in your full potential, connect with Valerie today via email at onyourtruthandrise@gmail.com. It's time to reveal, deal, and heal.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Getting to the Root of It. This is your host, Natashah Khan. So excited to have you guys here today as I have a very special guest that I have only known a very short space of time, but there are not enough words to describe how our meeting and our encounter has been so divine. And in the short space of time that we've met each other, this young woman has just been so inspirational, encouraging, motivating. I'm going to leave it up to her to tell you a little bit of how we met and how our relationship and friendship has definitely taken flight. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Portia Booker. She is a producer. She does so many other things, but that's something else I will leave for her to introduce you and tell you a little bit more about what she does out here in the world. But she's truly making a difference, impacting others, changing lives, and she always has a smile on her face. It is one of the things that I love about her so much, no matter what she's enduring and what you will hear in her story today. It just blows my mind that she always finds that the time or find herself just smiling despite the odds. Our topic and focus today, guys, is all about grief and loss. So many of you out there that have reached out to me have shared with me, whether it was a result of COVID and having lost a loved one, and or they were diagnosed with some terminal illness and you've recently lost them. Many have lost family members for years and they continue to grieve and they continue to struggle to function in life again. I asked Portia to come on the show because she recently lost her mom, and she has also endured some other things over the years. So I've asked her to come and share her story with us and to be able to share with us her, not just her experience, but what is she doing today to be able to help her through this grieving process. Because as we all know, it's very important to not just grieve, but understand why we're grieving, and at some point be able to learn on how to manage our lives again so that we are able to function and keep moving forward with, as I always say, being able to move forward with the purpose that God has called you for. All right, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Miss Portia.
Natashah, thank you so much for inviting me on here. I don't know why you let this Jacqueline in the box and you don't know what you're going to get come on your show, but okay, we're going to roll with it.
That's
First
all right.
of all, so for those of you who don't know me, I am Portia Booker, is known as Portia the Producer. I am your host and executive producer of Grew with Portia Talk radio show and podcast. I'm also stepping into the audiobook space. I'm a mental health advocate, photographer, Jacqueline of all trades, like what I mentioned, and Natashah even said it too. And I want to piggyback on what you said, Natashah. This smile that you see on my face every day was not always a thing. I was one of those people who could not see the opportunity within adversity. For me, whenever adversity would literally be the hammer and I'm the nail nailing me to the cross of life, I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't see the opportunity within that. And so for me to be able to stand here and smile despite what I've went through just recently with my mom, despite all the things that I've went through, from being suicidal, diagnosed with depression, anxiety, bipolar, all the things, and being on a cocktail of medicine, I still stand here and smile today because I don't believe that God put me through what he did for me to just exist. I believe that there's a message within my mess of life, and I'm able to turn my trials into a triumphant moment to help somebody else stop their dreams, goals, and aspirations from making the graveyard richer.
Well, amen, man. Just in a few minutes of this conversation, you're dropping the mic already. I think there's so many people out there, and including myself, I can relate to that. I've been through so much in life, and sometimes it's really, really difficult to see the positive or to find the positive in those dark places, or to see the light in those dark places. So I commend you a great deal because it's not easy, and one of the things I can say for those viewers out there, listeners out there, the smile that you put on is not a fake smile. It's not this mask that most oftentimes people will wear this mask and pretend that everything is okay, but deep down inside, they're still hurting. I can tell by all the conversations that we have that smile is genuine, and it just shows me how much work that you're doing on yourself. And again, that understanding of what God has called you for, despite the things that you've gone through. But I guess let me correct that. I shouldn't even say despite what you've gone through, because I'm coming to learn in my own as well. I needed to go through those things, as I'm sure you needed to experience those things, in order, like you said, for us to be able to have a message out of all of that mess, right? And one of the beautiful blessings for me is that God gifted me this podcast and an opportunity to be able to bring women like you onto the show, to be able to give others, men and women alike, young children, just the hope and the faith and the trust, and knowing that no matter what you're going through in life, it's not over. And you don't have to stay there, right? We have an opportunity to learn from the experience, grow from the experience, and ultimately choose whether or not we want to stay there or not. So would love for you to just, everyone who's listening out there, sit back and relax, because I want Portia to take the opportunity to just kind of tell you where it all started for her. You talked a little bit about bipolar, because that is something that, people are being diagnosed with every day. Many people are, not treated for it. So if you want to share us starting from that point in your life and just kind of bringing us to present day and you being the amazing soul that you are.
Natashah, I gotta say, when I look back on my journey, and it's been recent, 2016 was the highlight reel of my life. When I tell you I had it all, I had it all. I mean, from attending one of the top journalism schools in the world, to traveling abroad, to landing a once-in-a-lifetime internship with PBS. When I tell you I had it all, I had it all. To even landing my dream job in the television world. I was a TV producer. And what people didn't see, Natashah, what we often see in social media today is everybody's highlight reel. You don't see the crying nights. You don't see the suicidal thoughts. You don't see the suicidal attempts. You don't see the depression. You don't see when you're isolating yourself from people because you're so ashamed of what you're going through that you feel as though you literally have to stifle yourself in order to appear normal. You don't see all the medications that you're taking to make yourself feel as though you're a part of a crowd when really you're watching your own life from a bird's eye view and you're wondering, what the heck are you doing? So 2016, October of 2016, I embarked on my new journey of pursuing my career, being a television producer in a brand new state, brand new city. Everything was new. You know how that goes. You're young, 20 fun. I'll just say that, 20 fun. You're about to go and meet new people, experience new culture, all the things, right? All of the greatness that was in front of me. Didn't realize that that dream that I was living would soon become a nightmare in a short period of time. I noticed within the first 2 or 3 weeks at my new position. Now, mind you, I worked overnight, y'all. I don't know how much people know about the television world, but your shift determines your social life. So I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday. And I literally only had like 1.5 days off. So I'm already in a mental space that most people probably on a normal, regular routine would not be, because I'm sleeping during the day and I'm up all night. So within that first 2 weeks, while I'm really excited about my new role, going in, meeting my new coworkers, first thing I noticed while I'm trying to type up my scripts, the show, I'm sure everybody remembers Charlie Brown. Remember the teacher that went womp, womp, womp? That's literally what I was hearing in my head. Womp, 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 womp. I'm like, what is going on here? Why am I not understanding what I'm typing? Why does everything not click? It's like, you put one good battery and one dead battery in a bunny and it's not going to run right. It'll run for 2 seconds, but then it dies because the other battery is dependent upon the one with the most juice. And that's literally what was happening to me. So during that period of time, that was the first sign. That was the very first sign, was the misunderstanding, not being able to function at work. Then, of course, that's going to bleed into frustration and anger. So I'm literally lashing out at my coworkers sometimes unintentionally because of all the changes, right? I've moved out of state. I'm over 1,000 miles away from my main nucleus support system. So, of course, that's going to bring on some anxiety. That's going to bring on some sadness. Like, did I make the right choice? Should I stay? Should I have gone? All the things. So I'm already overthinking.
And I think that's important to highlight, right? I think a lot of times we lose sight of what you just said, is that it's all fun to move and to try something new and to do different things, but we've often failed to recognize the value behind a support system and recognizing that while those things are exciting, there's still change. And the average individual is not a fan. I'm going to speak for myself. I mean, I'm better at it now as I've gotten older, but I am not a fan of change, right? I didn't like that change. Even though it was exciting, it still did something to me mentally and emotionally. So here you are explaining all these little changes that sound really exciting and new, but there's all these little changes that are happening. And at the same time, you're moving away from a support system. So anything that mentally, emotionally could potentially occur, as I'm sure you're about to tell us, your support system is now not there for you to lean on.
Yeah. And trust me, that you don't realize how crucial a support system is. That's like your buoy out in the ocean to keep you afloat when the storms are raging, when the water's tumultuous and all that stuff. And not having them close. I mean, I talk to my mom every day on the phone. That was an unwritten agreement that me and my mom had, where I had to call her every single day, which that helped me a lot. But not having my close friends around, not being able to go out with them when I wanted to, or call them up, because while they're at work, I'm asleep. And while I'm up, they're asleep. So it's that night and day paradigm that you don't think about. And I will say I was grateful that my ex was the only person who I could talk to at night, because at the time he was in another country. So he was on a different time zone. So when I'm up, he was up. So I will say I was grateful to have him during some of those very, very dark moments. And so what eventually happened, Natashah, I lost it. I literally just lost it. One day, when I tell you all of the milk cartons, like when you hear a banshee scream, just exploded, that's exactly what happened. Everything just came crumpling down. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I'm thankful still that one of the producers in the newsroom pulled me to the side and said, hey, I know it's none of my business, but I think you should go see somebody. I think maybe you're having a hard time adjusting, and maybe they can guide you towards some resources of some sort. Because by that time, Natashah, I was put on a PIP because I wasn't able to meet the performance goals at the job and in the role that I occupied. So when I went to go see this psychiatrist, which I still laugh at this to this day, because one of my friends said, Portia, they literally read you the advertisement on the back of one of the drugs that they put you on. Now, I'll be honest, Natashah, I've been on every single mental health drug you can think of. Latuda, Wellbutrin, Effexor, Abilify. I've been on them all. Trust me, I've had the cocktail, and let me tell you, that wasn't even worth it. I would have rather have sat in the sun all day and got darker than dealt with that, but that's for a whole nother day. and so once they diagnosed, she's like, by the way, you have bipolar disorder. And I said, bipolar disorder, is that the same thing as being bisexual? Now, mind you, I grew up in a household where we didn't talk about mental health. Sure. So when you hear that term, I'm just going to go to the very first thing, like, oh, is that the same as this? What does this mean? No, she blatantly told me, Natashah, your brain is broken. I said, wow. So my brain is broken and I've made it all this far in my life, having a broken brain? Awesome. Okay. This doesn't sound right. But of course, when you're in a state of panic, you're on the verge of losing your apartment, your car, your job. What do? We cling for dear life onto a source, whether we know it or not. Sure. We think in our mind that it's the next best thing to save us, our saving grace. But really, for me, that was the downfall right there, because I'm afraid, I'm anxious, like, oh my God, I'm going to lose everything that I worked hard for. Then, of course, I come from a strong line of women, and that strong Black woman cape connotation is a negative one that's often passed down from grandmas, moms, etc. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of our ancestors who are women of color that wore that cape, it got them through that time. But as times change, it's the trickle down effect. Sure. Eventually, things are going to get watered down where we're not able to hold the weight of the world on our shoulders 24/7, and we're not supposed to.
It's a lot of pressure. That cape is heavy, because it's not like you're getting a brand new cape and starting new. You're carrying all of that strength and all of the good and the bad and the ugly on that cape as it is passed down to you. So there's a lot of pressure there. I wanted to just add very quickly before you move forward, that moment where you're being told that your brain is broken, boy, oh boy, do I, and my viewers know this, my listeners know this, that I do not like when people are labeled and when people are tagged. Now, when you talk about walking away from that experience and tapping into sources, this is where we start to seek people, places, and things. And so for many of my listeners who've listened to previous podcasts of mine, talking about addiction, talking about dependency issues, right? You're being told that your brain is broken. You're going through all of these changes. You're filled with fear, shame. You're just overwhelmed with all these different types of emotions, helplessness, hopelessness, powerlessness. And this is an example of what addiction is about. You know, addiction is both mental health and substance use. There are some individuals that will seek mind and mood altering substances or food or sex or money, as you spoke of, that source, in order to cope, because it's, I don't want to say it's the only thing, but it's what they know in the moment, that they're just looking for that immediate relief to feel better, right?
Oh, tenfold, yeah.
And or now, I know you're going to speak about the mental health part of this, where now some of us get stuck in that mental thought process, and now we are beginning to believe, am I broken? So I'll pass that back over to you so you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. When we start seeking exterior comforts, we instantly become literally a prisoner right then and there, because instead of us going internal within ourselves and really realizing the reality, like I mentioned, brand new state, brand new job, away from my immediate nucleus support system. So all the things that are in front of me that, of course, I'm not thinking about at that time, that are a part of all the transitions in my life currently. And once she put me on this cocktail of meds, that's, like I said again, where I literally made my bed, because I went from a size 16 in pants all the way to a 9. So I lost 40 pounds in under 60 days. I was sleeping literally all day, didn't have a social life, depressed because I couldn't relate to people, all my coworkers. And of course, I hate to say this, but newsrooms are very catty. News travels around just like it travels around the world. It travels the same way like rats in a sewer in a newsroom amongst coworkers. I hate to say it, but it does. And it happens a lot, but I digress there. And so literally that was the turning point. And I might get a little emotional still saying this story, but you figure I'm already been labeled, like you said, that my brain is broken. My coworkers at the time didn't make me feel as though I was welcome. And a part of that was because, again, they don't realize the transitions. It's business as usual. So we just need you to get the job done. We truly don't care how you feel, what's going on. We just want the job done. So we've got that going on. Then I'm already just feeling all sorts of not like myself, because I'm a social butterfly. I love being around people, but now I'm forced to isolate in many different facets. And I remember this was the last straw. I went into work and I was already feeling worthless. I was already feeling degraded. I mean, after having scripts thrown in my face, being yelled at in the newsroom, I said, is this really worth it? And you know, Natashah, I'll say this really quick trigger warning. When somebody is ready to commit suicide, when they know that it's the end, there's that euphoria that comes through where you're like, yes, the pain is going to stop. It's going to stop. So I come into the newsroom and I don't know who peed in this person's Cheerios to say that day where I was the one who they were going to lash out at. And I don't remember what I did. I think maybe I misspelled a word in the script. It was something minute where they just blew up at me in front of the whole newsroom.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe, one, that I was humiliated like that. Two, that people took the bystander syndrome and literally just watched it happen and nobody said anything. Three, all of my childhood traumas that had been suppressed resurfaced. So I like to call it, Natashah, it's like when you watch horror movies and the killer has the knife. So mind you, it's like I have 3 different knives placed in front of my face. So I've got being bullied, I've got being publicly humiliated, and I've already got that thought of I'm broken. So you've got all 3 of those gavels in front of my face. So of course it's like being a bird in a cage. Either a bird in a cage is going to scream and try to get out, or a bird in a cage is going to shut down. Yep. And I did both in that same moment. I got up from my desk, I went to the dressing room, and I just cried. I just cried, like bawled my eyes out. But then through that cry was that silver lining of, that's it. Today's the last day. So after my shift ended, I got in my car, drove down Riverside Drive, and I made a stop at the river, the Arkansas River. And there's a bridge there. And I literally parked my car, and I was texting one of my close friends at the time. She's also one of my soul moms too. And I don't remember what I said to her, but literally I was standing on that bridge when she called my phone. She said, Portia, you take your black A to that hospital now. And best believe I listened. I got down from there, got in my car. I didn't even realize she called the hospital to make sure I went there too. She was on it like flies on fresh trash. She was on it. And
that was God, one of God's angels here on earth, knowing exactly where to be and what you needed to do in that moment. And you were obedient to that.
Tenfold. And when I got there to the hospital, which it was close to my house. I wasn't far from it. I'd say I'm maybe 5-10 minutes from there, because all the main streets are very easy to get to and that. So when I got there, I checked in and all that. And when I was sitting on the bed, I told myself there has to be more to Portia's life than this. There has to be more than just existing, getting yelled at, doing this for a living. There's more to it. And that's when the only thing, Natashah, that died that day in March of 2017 was me living the life that other people wanted me to live. That's when I took the author pen back and became Portia, the author of her life.
And producer of her
The
life.
producer part came later, but it's the same concept. It was letting go of that identity. And that was a struggle in itself, because believe it or not, I got to share this other part too. So after I left from the hospital, which was around 9:00 in the morning, I went home, went to bed, and still went to work that night because I told the hospital not to admit me. I was afraid of them admitting me. I was terrified. I know some people would be like, oh yeah, admit me. Hecky no. I cannot be admitted. I will be like a bird in a cage. I will find a way to pull Shawshank Redemption and get out. But I was not. No, I still went to work. And that night when I went to work, I cleaned my desk. And I'd say 2 or 3 days later, I quit on the spot. I didn't look back. And I just remember the day. Still, when I still envision it today, the sky was a color blue that I've never seen before. And it symbolized to me a new beginning.
So I have to ask the question, and I thank God and praise God for this woman that called you. Are you able, for our listeners, just to, in that moment prior to that phone call, do you recall your mindset and where you were in that moment prior to that phone? And what made you answer that call? And the reason why I asked you that question, throughout my 25-year career in working in mental health, I have experienced individuals taking their lives. I'm also a survivor of attempting suicide, but there's many people who have not been successful in, surviving. So is there a defined moment prior to the call? Like what prompted you to take that call? Or do you just believe that that was just God's miracle right there in that moment?
I can tell you, while I was driving, that euphoria of the pain is about to stop. And also the shame. I didn't want my family to know what happened. So mind you, again, that strong Black woman cape, I couldn't face my family with them knowing I moved all the way here and I failed, that I couldn't stay afloat when in their mind, and then again, it's that inner critic of us that can be our worst enemy, setting that high expectation that didn't need to be set from the very beginning. And I just felt as though I could not face my family. So for me, it'd be easier for them to have a mystery than for them to find me, or this didn't work and I'd have to live to tell the tale, to say the least.
Got it.
And what made me answer, she never calls me. And the fact that she was at work at the time and her job is pretty demanding. Now it's not, I don't think, but then it was, where she really could not call me. And I don't remember exactly what I told her. I think I said something on the lines of, the end is near. Something on the lines of that. And she picked up on it. And that's when she called me. And she talked me down. You just never know how somebody hearing you, literally, she heard me through whatever I said in that text message. Nobody else who I texted that day heard that. She read between the lines. And sometimes we have to be more proactive in that and notice when something seems off. And I'm grateful.
Well, I think it's important to, she didn't just hear you that day, she listened, right? I believe there's a huge difference between the two. So you can say something and people hear you, but people aren't actively listening. And I shared a little secret with you when I was a little girl. It's the one thing that I always wanted for others, is to grow up and be able to be that listening ear. Because right along with you growing up in my life, and then part of my own story with my attempt at suicide, is it seemed like no one cared. No one was listening. What you had to say was not of value. Everyone else was more highly opinionated, and their opinions mattered, and so it was like, you get to that place of, so what, what's the point? And I'm just in awe right now of that moment for you, and I wish and pray for that for so many other people out there that may be sick and struggling today. Move us forward and thank you so much for just sharing the experience, and thank you, God, because I'm so glad to have met you, and I'm so glad that you are still here with us. And clearly, with both of us having had that experience and being here today, that definitely is not a coincidence for us to be able to share this part of our journey together. Move us forward, because I heard you mention your mom, and so during this time in your life, you've lost a lot, and it sounds like this point with this woman who has asked you to go to the hospital, she gets you off at that bridge. There's this turning point, right? Where's your mom in all of this once she finds out about what has happened? Or how long does it take before mom finds out? Because I know you were close with your mom.
And this is going to sound terrible, Natashah, but my mother didn't know about any of this. And part of that is because I was ashamed. Again, it was that shame, it was that guilt, that I came from a strong lineage of women, that I felt as though I had to continue to rise on that pedestal of holding that standard. And to say the least, obviously my mom knows now because she's transitioned from Earth, but at that time I could not tell her. I could not tell her because at one point, Natashah, I had tried to tell her when I was severely depressed when I was in high school. And the only thing I was truly met with was, you better take your depressed A somewhere else. Now, mind you, I always recall in my mind now that I'm a lot wiser that our parents were raised by victims. We've all been raised by victims. And my mom responded in the way that she knew best. She still loved me, but she wasn't able to handle that, which is okay. Because again, we grew up in a household that was very religious. You know, you consult the Bible for all of your wants, needs, and answers. But again, prayer without works is dead. So how can I really consult a book when I don't even understand the foundation of religion? I don't even understand the foundation of how God works, whatever God looks like in each and every one of our lives.
And I think it's important, we have to consider a factor cultural and generally generational beliefs, right? During, I know in my culture and where I'm from in the Caribbean, you're depressed, get up and go to work.
Exactly.
Right? And that's not to fault or blame anybody. You don't know. I always say you don't know what you don't know, right? So unfortunately, at that time in your life, here's a child crying out for help, and this parent just doesn't know. And unfortunately, that's sort of the response, that you get. But this is one of the reasons why I want to continue to do shows like this, to raise awareness, because I want the individuals out there who don't know and don't understand the depth and the severity of mental illness and substance use disorder, that they can begin to be more active listeners in the lives of the people that they love, so that they can learn how to respond.
Oh, yeah. And my mom, eventually, I think my mom did find out when I really started prioritizing my mental wellness and going to therapy, and then doing more mental health advocacy. And then also with the birth of Grew with Portia. Grew with Portia came about in 2019 as a way for me to, one, build my self-confidence, and two, share my mental health journey in order to encourage more people to open up about it, have dialogue, and really take priority in it. And my mom, I'm grateful. My mom still was my cheerleader, hands down. She still is. And she actually came last year when I was a guest speaker for the NAMI walk here in Cleveland, Ohio. My mom came and watched me speak. She heard kind of like my little 2-minute, 30-second speech around how I was able to learn how to convert my anxiety and depression and pain into purpose.
Amen.
And it's when I think, Natashah, about where I am today, even though now my mom, my main squeeze, has transitioned, this grief journey that I'm currently occupying, truthfully, and this is going to sound weird to some people, but it was the best earthquake that could have happened in my life. Same thing when my television career ended. That breakdown I had was my breakthrough to get to here. And even with my mom, even though currently it's only 2 months in that my mom transitioned, and it still to this day doesn't feel real all the way. But I think because of what I went through in the past and the wisdom that I've carried over these last couple years of really investing in understanding myself and my mental wellness, is what keeps me afloat in that support system. I'm back with my main nucleus support system and more to help me, to guide me, and to let me know that it's okay what you're going through. You don't have to wear that strong cape anymore. You're allowed to be vulnerable. And I tell people all the time, the power of vulnerability is a wonderful thing, because to me, if I wasn't vulnerable, I wouldn't have garnered so many rich relationships. Amen. I wouldn't have become the person who I am today, where I'm able to share my story and wear it raw on my sleeve. I mean, literally, I make jokes about wearing my underwear outside of my pants when I went to work one time, but that's for a whole nother day. But it's true. It's but it's the same concept. I mean, being vulnerable and sharing the messiness of my life has converted into a message for the masses. I mean, I have to, I guess, share this now. I would have never produced my first book that will be out at the end of this month, at the end of September. So my audio book is titled Finding Grace Within Grief, Her Transition, My Transformation. And I truly believe that grief is like the open door effect, right? When one door closes, many other doors open, but I think we get imprisoned by the loss of what is not here, where we're not able to see all of what is still present and prevalent in our life. And even me, I knew, and I'm going to get emotional for a minute. I knew even before my mom transitioned, I knew I was going to be okay. I knew that her love still held a strong stake in my heart. And even though I miss her, I'm grateful for the legacy and the love that she gave to everybody, including her children. And her strength, the role model that I had for my mother on this earth was profound. Because I knew in order to be a strong person in this world, I would have needed another strong person to follow behind.
Can amen to that. And can I add to that, that every strong woman out there, every strong person out there endures suffering, right?
Yep.
And they need to be, or part of the requirement of being strong is to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I think we live in a society sometimes that believes that if I have to be strong, then I can't be suffering, and I can't be, I can't have, I'm not supposed to be in pain, and I shouldn't show my vulnerability because that means that I'm weak. And in my own experiences and my own journey in recovery, I came to learn the opposite, because I grew up that way. I grew up seeing my mother and all the women in my family, very strong women, never really understanding what they had to go through and what they had to endure. So of course, from my perspective as a child, it's, you never see them cry. You never see that weakness. You never see that vulnerability. So you don't understand that there's a lot more that comes behind all of that strength that they have. And not just, I'm not speaking in the physical sense, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's one of the things that I want our listeners today to understand. There is a lot of strength in you, quote unquote, being, what people like to say weak, but I like to say it's vulnerable. I've come to learn in my relationship with a higher power and with God, as I understand him, that that's when I seek him. Because when I think I'm strong, when I think that I got it all under control, when I believe that I'm the one that can handle everything and take care of everything, I don't seek help. I don't seek my support system. I don't seek my mentors. I definitely don't seek God. So I believe it's a gift to see your strength, your weaknesses, and vulnerabilities all in the same line, right? They're all in the same line, and it's all needed because it's all the parts of you. I don't believe anybody is perfect, and no one can be strong all the time. One of the things that I teach my daughters is I am human, and what you're sharing with us is you're human. Despite this beautiful career and all these beautiful things and blessings that you've been given in life, you're still human. And I think our society is lacking I don't want to say portrayal, but they're lacking this sense of just being real and raw, right? So you have flaws. So you're not perfect. So you're struggling today. Okay, you're not immune. None of us are immune, right? We all have ups. We all have downs. We all have in-betweens. So, and I can talk about that forever, but you said that, and it just inspired me to remind our listeners that it's okay to be vulnerable. To me, that's where you're going to get your strength, and that's where your success is going to come from. It's just being your authentic self.
Tenfold. And in the society, Natashah, that we live in a world where we're unable to see two parallels, or like what my soul mom calls a duality, where we are unable to see the bad. We can only see the good. Everything has to be perfect, Scotch tape special. No. Our whole life is not a highlight reel. It's not the McDonald's line analogy, and grief works that way. Grief, we live in a society where we're not able to grieve. Everybody thinks you're supposed to be back to normal, back to business tomorrow, or you can cry boohoo today, but you can't be vulnerable tomorrow. You better get up, come to work, show up, get the job done. And I'm thankful, knock on wood, that when my mom transitioned, I was an entrepreneur. I'm thankful that I've been in the entrepreneurship space for over a year. And that gave me the time to really focus, go within. It gave me the space with my support system, my coaches, my mentors, my friends, my family. And it also gave me the space to think, what next? Instead of falling into that pattern, like you mentioned in the beginning, of addiction, of becoming a workaholic or substance, or seeking exterior comforts that really are a prison sentence for you. And I want to share this really quick. I know you had mentioned in the beginning about how we came to meet. And it's so, I know that everything is divine. Everything that happens to us, whether it's a person we meet, an event that occurs, everything happens for a reason. And I remember the day after my mom passed, the sky was a color pink of the same, it was the same color pink of the robe she had on the very next morning after my mom passed. And I said, you know, I want to do this grief journey different. I don't want to do it the same way when I left the television industry. And I said, God, guide me to whoever or whatever you need me to go, who will help me process this where I don't become a prisoner again. And the very next week, here you come, strolling through. And in my mind, I said, oh, this person would be a fantastic guest on my show. But then when we were talking, and I said, wait a minute, hold the front door wide open and just let all the feral cats in. I said, help. The help is here. And I recognized it. And how many times, I mean, we've talked about this before, where the man at sea is asking God for help, but yet he ends up drowning because all the help that was sent to him, it wasn't in his idea of what help was supposed to be.
His expectations. He had his own perception of, he wanted God bodily to come down and help him. You know what I mean? So he lost sight of what that help looks like and how it comes in so many different forms.
Yeah. And I was thankful that I recognized it right off the bat, like the little kids who you put the little fishing pole on their head and they're chasing the hot dog. See, I'm the one that you put it on my head and I'll just grab the hot dog and eat it. So instead of chasing it, but how many people chase that hot dog for help and they never find it? They end up falling in a pool of water and getting eaten by piranhas and all this other stuff. I know I can go on like a whole twirly whirl here, but I'm thankful that I recognized when my prayer was answered. It wasn't in the form that I expected. I let go of all expectations because I didn't know what it was going to look like. But when I let go of that expectation, that's when the doors of opportunity opened for me to gracefully move through this process. Like, I have my moments, I have my days, but I can honestly say I'm not crippled. And that was my fear, of being crippled by grief the way so many people unintentionally become, because the loss of that person, the loss of that job, that loss of identity, right? Sure. Because you're not only grieving the loss of the physicality of whatever it may be, but you're also grieving the loss of a portion of your identity associated with that. Like, yeah, I'll always be my mom's daughter. I'll always be that little patchy squirrel that she gave birth to, which she probably shouldn't have, but that's a hope for another day because I'm a menace to society sometimes, but that's okay. But even with my television job, when I let go of that identity of wanting to be a producer so bad, my prayers were answered a few years later, where now I'm the executive producer of my own show, which is doing very well, internationally known. And I'm also producing other people's shows to help them, because that was my dream. So you never know how letting go can be that segue or catalyst to land you where you need to go. And I think grief works the exact same way. I believe grief is for us to learn how to let go of the ideologies, the expectations, the imprisonment of the strong Black woman, the societal prescription narrative that if you're diagnosed with bipolar, your brain is broken. If you're diagnosed with depression, you can't get out of bed. It's letting go of all of those things and starting fresh. It's like being reborn as a phoenix, if you're open to seeing it.
100%. And, one of the things that when working with clients is I help them understand is that we grow up believing that our identity is in all of those things that you just mentioned, right? I remembered at the age of 31, prior to hitting my bottom, just before hitting my bottom and finding a path into recovery, I was asked, who am I? And I would always answer the question, well, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a coworker, I'm somebody's best friend, I'm somebody's daughter. And they're like, no, that's not who you are. And I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, that's who I am. They're like, no, that's what you've defined yourself to be based on these roles that are placed here in society. They're like, that's a role. That's not who Natashah really is. And I remember getting so angry with this individual for asking me this question. But when I came into sobriety and as I worked through Alcoholics Anonymous and seeing a therapist, etc., I came to really understand what that meant. That I was seeking or identifying myself based on all these different roles and things out there in the world. Same like you said earlier, we are constantly, without recognizing it, we are constantly looking outside of ourselves in order to find that inner peace. And I have come to believe, I've come to experience and see that it's those of us who've been through hell and back, for those of us who come near death and back, can be able to help people understand, stop looking outside of yourself to discover ultimately who you are and who God has called you to be. And I know hearing that, people will just think that, oh, Natashah, you're crazy, you don't understand. Portia and I are here to tell you that we understand. I get it. I used to be the girl of this world. And I used to, if I lost a job, a piece of me was lost. When I lost custody of my children, that role of being a mother, part of me was lost. Like I endured loss constantly in my life that I began to believe, is this what my life is going to be? My life is going to be all about constantly losing, until when I got sober and I stepped into recovery, what you just said. And I believe wholeheartedly that a power greater than myself restored me to sanity, and my higher power placed it upon me and gave me the eyes to see and revealed to me the understanding of what it means to look within myself and to seek him in order to discover who Natashah really was, or who she is today. And that's why I do what I do today, because I want to be able to have other people to have that opportunity. Because the last 12 years of my sobriety has truly been a gift. It has truly been golden and a blessing, because I'm no longer trying to seek outside of myself to get that wholeness, fulfillment, and peace. So I know that I kind of went off on a tangent there for a second, but that really just struck something in me I wanted to share with our listeners. Can you, as we wrap this up today, is in terms of your process, can you kind of maybe give our listeners some to-dos? What are some things that you've done? I mean, it's only been 2 months, Portia, that you've lost your mom. And my deepest condolences to you. But I've spoken with you and I've watched you, and I know the sort of inner workings of your day-to-day and what you have to deal with and the different emotions you go through. Are you able to or willing to just share with our listeners just what some of those days look like? And then when you're having a hard day, what is it, what tools are you using to help you manage through your grief?
One, again, I want to thank you, Natashah, for inviting me on and, being able to share this journey that I've been on, this healing journey, and now I'm in this grief process. But grief is a process, but it's not permanent. Let me say that again. Grief is a process, but it's not permanent. It's only permanent if you allow yourself to stay in it, but it is not permanent. What helps me, Natashah, I start off every day, and even my mentors say this, start off every day with gratitude. People see me on my Facebook stories and my Instagram stories. You see that I'm writing in my gratitude journal, whether it's 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I am actually up, y'all. This patchy squirrel is up. I'm not pre-recording nothing. I am up. I start off my day with gratitude. Next thing that I do is I read my daily Bible verse to give me some food for thought to focus on the higher power. The next thing I do, step number 3, I write a letter every morning to God. And I'm honest about how I feel. Hey, God, I'm not too happy today. No, this is how I literally start off my letters to God. Hey, God, it's Portia again. Remember me? I'm not too happy today. And I have an honest conversation. You have to be honest. That's where it starts, is that honesty boat. If you're not ready to be honest, you ain't ready to heal. Let me say that again. If you ain't ready to be honest, you ain't ready to heal. And I had to overcome that veil of, oh, I have to hide from the higher power. My great grandmother said it best. What can you do that God can't do? And if anything, he already knows what I'm about to say. Why am I trying to hide under the veil of illusion when he literally just pulled that back like, I see what you're wearing. I see what you're doing. I see that hexadecimal face that you're on. Again, you have to be honest. On the hard days, what I find myself doing, self-care. I have a self-care SOP in my phone, which stands for Standard Operating Procedures. And in my self-care book, I have different activities that I can do within an hour's time of my day that will bring me back to life. So whether it's wood burning, taking a walk with the dog, taking myself out of the house for an hour, whether it's for an hour drive out to the lake or wherever, phoning a friend, texting somebody, watching funny memes, whatever it is, you have to carve out that time and really include self-care daily when you're in a grief process. I think you should do it regardless. The other thing I do on the hard days is I write. I really heavily divulge because the emotions are so heavy, and I cry. I give myself permission to cry because I was one of those people who felt crying was a weakness. And I grew up with all boys. So, of course, if you get hit in the stomach playing football or get a finger jam when you're playing basketball or get hit in the face with the kickball, you got to suck it up. But as I grew older, and I don't want to say older, as I grew wiser, I had to realize that stifling those tears was increasing my suffering. So I had to let it flow like water. When you feel it coming, don't stifle it. Let it out. Because you have to, because literally those emotions will start to affect you physically. Like my heart will start pounding really heavy. I'll start to sweat. I feel like I can't breathe. Like you have to let it out. Your body is telling you, listen to me. Hear me. I'm crying. Hear me.
Feel your feelings, right? Yeah. Whatever that feeling is, not just sadness. Even if you're angry, a lot of clients will say to me, I was raised to, not to show my anger. Some show it a little more than they need to. Others, don't show it at all. But the message here is feel your feelings. Because what you just said is at the end of the day, that is what, when we hold on to it and we store that in our body, that increases the emotional stress levels within us. Those emotional stress levels will then contribute to medical conditions. It will contribute to exacerbating mental health conditions and or substance use disorders and so many other issues that are out there today. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're feeling your feelings. What else, Portia? Anything else? Any last minute words, a message of hope to those that are sick and suffering out there today? What would you like to leave our listeners with today?
One, I want to say meditate. Take time every day to sit in silence. Close your eyes for 5 minutes, set a timer, because that'll help to ground you and set your focus for the day. Last thing I will say, everything in our life happens for a reason. You can either be a victim of your circumstance or find a way to become victorious over anything, because we are resilient people. We don't have to wear the strong person cape every single day, and vulnerability is our greatest strength. Portia out.
Amen. Amen. Oh, I'm just so blessed, so honored. Thank you, God, for just allowing our paths to cross. Thank you, Miss Gail Flowers, for introducing us. I can't remember a time when I just bonded spiritually and connected with someone in such a short space of time. Yourself, Angela Lewis, and Reverend Pat. Let me tell you, boy, you ladies are truly divine and truly a gift from God. And I just want to say thank you so much for being on this show. Portia, can you, if someone wanted to talk to you more about this, your grief process, or maybe they're grieving today, or maybe listen, if there's somebody out there listening today that may be having suicidal ideation or even contemplating the thought of not wanting to be here anymore, and you just need someone to listen to, Portia, is there a way that these individuals out there that are listening can reach out to you?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at Portia_hugs, HUGS. I'm also on Facebook, Portia Booker, PortiaBooker. Also on LinkedIn. I'm also at the email address, journalistpab@gmail.com. So I'm everywhere. I mean, if you just Google my name, you'll be able to find me. I mean, literally, if you Google Portia Booker, I am known in the world somewhere in the galaxy interwebs. So
and your name is not a common name. So I don't think, unlike my name, when you pull up my first, my name, believe it or not, there's a lot of me out there around the world. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening today and tuning in. Also, if anyone would also like to continue a conversation with myself about my own experiences with suicide and or overcoming grief and just learning to live the life that we've been called to live, I can be reached at empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. Again, this is Natashah Khan, and we're signing off today. Please, I look forward to you guys tuning in to our next episode. Be blessed. Hi, my name is Natashah Khan. I am a personal development coach. I am a published author, motivational speaker, and I'm here with an opportunity for you today. Do you ever sometimes feel sort of stuck, not really sure where you're heading in life, or looking back on your life and thinking, I didn't quite always accomplish the things that I wanted? Do you struggle with fear and or anxiety, or you worry all the time? Or maybe you find yourself constantly giving to everyone else, but never really taking time to give to yourself. Or maybe you identify as a codependent and you realize that it's time for you to stop giving so much of yourself to everyone else and to stop and take time to give back to you. Well, you've come to the right place. On Monday evenings from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I host a group that is a private group, so it's invitation only, to members who come together to begin to support each other, lift each other up, inspire each other, and learn the tools necessary on how to find their freedom, how to empower their voices, speak their truth, and discover their authentic selves. So if this sounds like something that you are interested in, you are welcome to reach out to me via email at empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. Again, that is empoweredvoices45@gmail.com. If you are looking to change your life, you are looking to transform and live the life that you've been destined to live, please don't hesitate to reach out today.
You are now tuned in to MINDTality, bringing inspiration into your atmosphere through podcasts that inform, educate, and elevate. Up next is the Soulful Conversations with hosts Dawn Airhart Witte, Stephanie Young, and Portia Booker, who seems to be a common theme this month. Keep it locked right here for powerful conversations that are bound to bring you encouragement and inspiration, leading to change and elevation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 9th episode of the Soulful Conversations. We're so excited to have you here today. And I wanted to make a formal announcement. Portia, the producer, is going to be joining us as a regular panelist every month. So thank you so much, Portia, for being on our show today. Danielle is our guest today, Danielle Matthews. She's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to get started with our conversation.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for having me on. It's so fun to be with the three of you. And, to give a little intro, basically, I am a brain injury survivor. And after 10 years of going through an incredible healing journey, I have created a beautiful life for myself where I'm now educating people about a breakthrough health technology. And I support and work with people all over the world.
Well, thank you for that. Stephanie, did you want to do you have anything to say in the open?
Just wanted to say good morning, and I'm so excited for today. Very, very excited. We always have the greatest guests and spreading some love and light. So I'm excited to do that. Excited to be here.
Thanks, Steph. Portia.
First of all, thanks for welcoming me to the family. Oh my goodness. I am excited to be here. Of course, recreating your reality, man. Talk about a story that really hits home for me. I'm with you there, Danielle. We've got a lot to cover here, but I'm really excited to dive into this conversation today. So thank you.
Fantastic. Well, as I was looking, I always like to look for a quote or something to get us started in our conversations. And one of my favorite quotes is from Buddha, and it's what we think we become. And as life coaches, we've all learned that, our mindset matters, and what we can create the lives that we want to have by thinking about what we want to have in our lives. But that's easier said than done, right? So as Danielle was saying, you have a brain injury survivor. So it's easy to do it in the good times, right? But when you're struggling or when you've got some challenges, how do you recreate your reality?
It's a beautiful question. And I think, for me, it was a brain injury, but for those listening, I'm sure maybe it's a divorce, it's the loss of a job, it's that illness that set in, it's something, for me, I had this car accident, and I look at life, it's a simple equation I always use. It's, the external world plus your internal response equals your reality. And I think that internal response, that's the mindset that you're getting at. That's how you think. And for me, for so long after my accident, I resisted. Like, my internal response was frustration, anger, why did this happen to me? I felt like a victim. And the reality I was creating was one where I was depressed. I was having panic attacks regularly. I had severe anxiety. I couldn't work. I was very sick. And I remember after my doctor said to me, this is your new normal. There's nothing more that can be done. Your body's done the healing it will do. Something in me switched. And I think challenges are what allow us to go deep within to grow, if we have that perspective. Otherwise, we beat our heads into them and life gets hard, right? But when we step back and we go, okay, perhaps this is happening for me. What am I meant to learn here? What is being revealed here? And so I had this internal shift where I said, all right, there's new rules on this game of life. How can I change my mind around that? And how can I work within these parameters so that my reality is one where I'm happy and I'm filled with joy? And that's what I started to do. And it wasn't easy. It literally started with a gratitude journal. So every night I'd look for something that I could be grateful for. And then in the days and weeks and months that followed, all of a sudden my mind was just constantly thinking about all the things I was grateful for, because we have so much beauty around us all the time. Just step out in nature, be grateful for what we're surrounded by, the earth we live on. And when you start to do that, my reality started to shift. And then all of a sudden I was finding happiness. I was no longer frustrated. I was seeing that there was just beauty all around me. And so my reality changed. And the cool thing was it rippled out beyond me. When I was at peace, all of a sudden my parents, the people that were in my world, they became at peace. And so it's incredible how we can internally, it's all an inside job, not an easy job, but it's all an inside job.
Oh, that's beautiful. Portia, I know you've got lots to add.
Oh, of course. One, I agree with Danielle about an inside job, because it takes that challenge, like what you said, that earthquake within your life where you're like, I'm sick and tired of being in the victim boat. Everybody treating me like a victim. Everybody telling me that this is my new normal and I have to adapt to what is plagued before me. And in my case, Danielle, that was the story for me with my mental health journey. When that psychiatrist told me my brain was broken, I'd have to be on a cocktail of medication all my life, I said no. I wasn't buying it from the get-go. And I always in my soul had a drive to find another way. And that's what the key to my success is today. For me to share that I've been prescription med free for 3 years, it was that flame that never went out of seeking an alternative way of living. I knew that I was destined for more. I knew that I wasn't supposed to be stuck in that victim boat forever. And so I think for our listeners who are tuning in, that's where it starts. It starts with that challenge. It starts with that earthquake, that shattering in your life where all the pieces of your life are before you, and you take one piece at a time and put the puzzle back together in order for you to find that wholeness within you again. And like you said, internal.
Steph.
Yes, I think that one of my greatest coping skills that I've ever learned is that I learned to tell myself that everything that happens is happening for my greatest good. When I lost my son, my whole reality and everything as I knew changed in an instant. And I just really had to come to, and like you said, both said, is do that inner work and that inner healing. And then whenever you can look within and you realize that when things are out of our control, we just have to learn to accept it. And that's our greatest, sometimes our greatest challenges help us overcome or come to our greatest strengths.
Yes, there's always a lesson, and we don't always know why it happened in the moment, and maybe we won't know for a long time, but if we can look back one day and say, oh, now I understand why it happened that way, whether it's you lost a job or you left a marriage or, things like that. I remember, and Danielle, it was perfect, it's gratitude. When we can find the things we have to be grateful for, the work I do in Africa, I see people that they don't have access to clean water. They struggle for food, basic medical necessities they don't have. And so when anything happens in my life, yet they are joyful, they are generous, they are loving, they are happy, even amongst those circumstances. And I look at my life and I think, no matter what happens, I have a roof over my head, I have food in my refrigerator, I have love in my life. So all of those things I look at and I'm grateful for. So Portia, I know you and I talk about gratitude. Stephanie, you and we all talk about gratitude because it is the cornerstone, right? I mean, we woke up this morning. So Portia, how does that look like in your life? How do you practice that gratitude? How do you find the gratitude, especially when you're going through some of life's greatest challenges?
Well, I'll start with the challenge part that is currently sitting in my realm. Most of you have known that my mom recently made her transition in July of this year. And by the time this conversation airs, my mom would have been transitioned for 3 months. And even though it's still new for me, and some days I have a hard time realizing that she's no longer physically here. Some days I'm still in denial where I'm like, she's not gone. She's on vacation. She's still in the hospital. But once that reality settles in, the first thing I grab is my gratitude journal in the morning. Every single morning I start off my day, whether it's 4 o'clock in the morning where I had a rough night's sleep, where every idea under the sun wanted to tickle me in my sleep. And they're like, get up, Portia, come on, it's creativity time. As we all know, that's been all of us at some point, right? So if I'm getting up, I'm like, okay, I'm a little sleep deprived, but you know what? I'm going to roll with it. I know in my soul and in my heart that I'm grateful to be able to wake up. Okay, yeah, I can take a nap later in the day, but I'm grateful for this opportunity to be able to say, you know what? I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I have the basic necessities met, food, water, shelter. I'm grateful for every opportunity. And I've even written in my gratitude journal, thank you for this grief journey, because what I'm currently going through can be somebody's blueprint for what they need to stop their life from being thrown into the cemetery and making it richer. So that's how I start my day, with gratitude every single day. And even when a challenge, like on those really, really trying days where I really miss my mom, I say, thank you. thank you for the life that I was granted with her for the last 30 years, where she gave me the tools and the steps and the perseverance to step into my true calling, and to also be surrounded by coaches, mentors, my other support system to keep me afloat, especially when I'm really struggling. So no matter what, gratitude, I had to adopt it. That was one thing I can say. I had to adopt gratitude into my everyday life, because if I didn't, I could be a victim of my circumstance. I could become another Ivan the Terrible because of my mom transitioning, like so many people do. But I chose not to. I chose the greater good, and I chose to follow in a path of love and gratitude than of a path of scarcity, adversity, and victimhood.
And thank you, Portia. Thank you for stepping into that and being that example for others, because it really is important. If someone else can see you do it, then they say, well, if she can do it, maybe I can do it too.
Exactly. And that's why we share our stories. Danielle, I know you've got something to add to this too.
Well, I was just thinking when you were talking, I have a journal also, and I still, to this day, write something I'm grateful for down. And I also, though, I use my life as my spiritual journey. It's like everything that is unfolding. I love what you said, Stephanie, like it's all unfolding for my highest good. And so when there's moments where I get triggered, I feel anger come in, or I feel fear come in, or I meet just insane resistance. And I'm like, what is going on? It's just, I step back and I express gratitude to the person or the situation that just caused it. Because a teacher of mine, she said to me, she's a yoga teacher, and she said, Danielle, the yogis believed that groups of souls travel together from lifetime to lifetime in order to create the weather patterns in one another's lives so that it can reveal the unresolved things within the person so they can deal with it. And we talk about how mindset, when we keep a strong mindset, we're staying in the space of gratitude, that's powerful. But so many people, if you're listening, it's like you said at the beginning, like easier said than done. But I think the reason we get pulled back is because of this unresolved stuff that's, I think, stuck in us. And sometimes it's subconscious, we don't even know it's there. But when we have these moments or we go through these challenges, it's like all of a sudden you see the things within and you go, oh, well, why do I have that fear? Am I not trusting in the abundance? And I'm not trusting that there is, infinite intelligence is always working everything out for my highest good. Like what's going on here? And then once you see it, it's like, okay, well, now we can deal with it. I use meditation for that. Like I'll then set an intention around it, and I'll drop in around that and go, all right, how can I shift that? If I can't do it myself, I'll seek out some sort of therapist or energy worker or healer, and I'll say, okay, I'm feeling this block. Can you help me move past it? Because I know that it's holding me down in my current, my current reality. And that is like, I think it was Bob Proctor. He always said, it's so beautiful. The results you're getting in life are a reflection of your own self-image. And he said, it's what's inside that you're thinking or believing is going to create then what happens on the outside. And when I realized that, it was like, oh, wow, okay, so let me look at the results that I'm getting, and that's going to be an indicator of that subconscious stuff, the things that are in there that need to be resolved. And so every single day, it's like every conversation, however things work out, it's like, all right, and sometimes I'm like in the conversation still, getting triggered, right? I'm like getting angry, but I'm stepping back and going, what in the world is making you angry here, right? Rather than like engaging with the emotion, because that'll just send everybody off. I like step back and like, well, isn't this interesting? Like I get fascinated with myself. Like, what's happening here? Because it's not the current situation. And it, it takes a lot of practice.
It does. And I think it's also easier to remember that things happen to everybody. We're all going to experience loss. We're all, not everybody. We're not going to go through every one of our days as perfect, happy, joy. We're going to have challenges. And it's how we respond to those challenges where we have our power, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And when we come from that gratitude state, it's hard to see what we're lacking when we're in that grateful state. And also, I think that what else is important is forgiveness, forgiving that person. And even when we don't get a apology from them, we can give that apology to ourselves so that we can be within our self peace. Because if we carry around that anger and that resentment, then as you said, Danielle, that's going to resort out into our outer world. So I think that forgiveness is very important along with gratitude.
And forgiving ourselves too.
Yeah.
You know, we think we're supposed to be doing this, or we're not as far along as we wanted to go. And, you know, and we didn't react or respond to something in the way that we wished we had. You know, we have to forgive ourselves also. That grace needs to be extended to ourselves. Portia?
100%. Forgiveness, it's not for the other person. It's for you to set yourself free. I think we live in a society where there's one picture painted around how forgiveness is supposed to be linear, but forgiveness is not. For some people, yeah, it's I forgive you, we can hug, kiki, go have a drink, go do whatever. But for people like me, depending on the situation, when I forgive you, I'm sending you off with love, but I'm also setting an intentional boundary to keep myself safe from not falling back into that same pool of the hamster wheel of shame again. So I think when it comes to forgiveness, set the intention, make sure you reciprocate that for yourself. And also, Dawn, me and you talk about this too, surrendering that person with love to the responsibility of whether it's God, source, the universe. For me, it's God, letting God guide them on whatever their path is. That's not your responsibility anymore. Because my great grandmother had a saying, what can you do that God can't do?
You remind me of that all the time.
Yeah, I love the saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
It's true.
It is true. It is true. So, okay. So when you're in the midst of it, when you are triggered, okay, looking for gratitude, we've covered that one. And that one I think is the hugest and the most powerful we can do. But what are some other tricks and tips that you can give to people when they, again, are feeling stuck? They just want to cry because like everything's fallen apart and they just don't, know what to do. How do you get yourself out of that place and create something beautiful out of something that wasn't?
Well, first of all, you got to feel it. I think that there's also perhaps some some people call it like the spiritual bypass. Like they don't feel the emotion because they're like, oh no, like it's happening for a bigger purpose. Like no, you need to feel it. Like Portia's going through grieving. Like you need to let the emotions flow. It's like they got to flow out of you, because if they don't, they get stuck. If you stop them, it's just going to start turning in on itself. And those things will literally manifest into something solid, usually a disease, a dis-ease in the body. And it's so fascinating. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but I went on such a into a rabbit hole looking at like what is the cause of disease? And I love some work that's been done looking at the emotional state that you have, can cause different issues in the body. And I anytime someone tells me they have a health issue, I literally go to this book and I'm like, okay, well, that says that, oh, they're having lung issue. Oh, that's grief. Oh, interesting. And then I look at what's going on in their life and I'm like, oh, they're grieving, but they haven't let themselves grieve. And so it's so fascinating. And so what my tip would be let the emotions come out. Okay. And trust me, I remember after my accident, I didn't cry. I was afraid. I was like, if I let myself cry, I will literally never stop crying. And I remember my therapist said to me, Danielle, think about this logically, you will eventually stop. You need to just let yourself do it. So once I did that, it was I gave myself permission to feel, almost permission to say, okay, life's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm going through stuff. It's okay. But then I put the right people around me. So sometimes I believe you need to have the right people around you to help you get up, to remind you, that there is more, and that don't keep you in the victim space of, oh, I'm so sorry for you. That's not helpful. People think they're being helpful, but it's actually not helpful. It's I preferred the people that treated me after my brain injury I was still me. And, okay, let's have dinner together, Danielle. Let's go on a walk together, Danielle. Not oh, poor Danielle, she can't go out. She can't do what she wants to do. Just that made me feel worse. So I think for me, it would be, look, get yourself around people. And there is a professional designed and that has gone through probably what you've been through or been to school to help people through this. There are professionals out there for everything. And it's okay to ask for help. I needed that. And I've always had some outside. So I honestly think the world would be a better place if everybody had a therapist, because it's like a person that is literally just dedicated to hearing you out and what's going to be best for you. They don't care about your friends, your family, the influences of society, whatever. They're like, hang on, is this serving you as an individual? Like, is that choice going to bring you joy? Is that, what is actually informing this choice? And I think having that support around makes a big difference. And the other thing that I would do is I would watch funny videos. So when I had a really low, I would just go to those compilations of I don't know, animals doing funny things or people doing funny things. And I'd watch it and I'd make myself laugh, because that shift in emotion, would oftentimes pull me out, because I think these higher energy, vibrational states, they overpower the lower ones. Anger, fear, resentment, all that stuff is low. But when you can laugh and have joy and have gratitude, it'll pull you out of it. So laughter to me is the best medicine.
It is. I'm so glad that you said that, because I think, when we're going through life's hard things, if we can find some kind of amusement, we can't control the outside circumstance, but we can find something to laugh at because of the ridiculousness of it. Yeah. So Portia, you've been shaking your head.
Laughter is literally my middle name. When you talk about laughter, Danielle, I literally find some random joke that I literally pull from out of the sky. Like me and Dawn one day came up with a joke about grapes. I said, what did the grape yell when it wasn't picked from the vine? And she made it even funnier by saying to me, did it yell or did it whine? And of course, the answer was I Concord, as in Concord grapes. So when you talk about finding laughter, literally, I find laughter in the most randomest, even the darkest things. I mean, I tell people I drink my coffee dark like my soul and my sense of humor. No sugar, no cream. But that's for a whole nother day. But for me, Dawn, what really helps me outside of gratitude is, one, expressing my emotions. My therapist got on my butt about that. She said, Portia, you gotta feel your feelings. And if you're somebody who's going through grief, whether it's the physical loss of a person, like in my mom's case, the loss of a job, the ending of a friendship, the loss of a pet, whatever that may be, you have to let those emotions out. Because for me, I start to feel it physically. When I start to feel depressed or angry or anxious, I feel it in my lungs. My wrists start to ache, my back starts to ache, my knees start to buckle up like I haven't eaten a banana to have enough potassium. So yeah, it's a blockage in the body, but it's all emotional baggage. And so you don't want to have that emotional baggage literally create unwanted stimuli in your body if you can prevent it by giving yourself permission to feel. Number two, for me, that support system. I'm grateful for my therapist, my circle of coaches and mentors who help keep me afloat. They don't put me in that victim mentality or victim boat, like, oh, poor Portia, she lost her mom. Oh, woe is her. No, to be honest with you, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired of people saying, oh, poor Portia, she lost her mom. Oh, what is she going to do? And that's how my book, Finding Grace Within Grief, came about, because I was tired of hearing that same sad violin narrative that I didn't want to hear anymore. I'm like, there is no way that I'm going to continue to be a prisoner like most people are when it comes to grief. I knew that I wanted to process the grief journey differently. And it's funny, Danielle, when you talk about people coming into your life divinely, that's how my therapist came into my life. I said a prayer the very next day after my mom transitioned. I said, God, send me the help, because I don't know what direction to go, and I surrendered. And sure enough, a week after, I was introduced to my therapist through a mutual connect. So just surrendering really helped me to stay on this steady path and stay afloat to where I am. Last thing I recommend is find a way to channel your emotions into a creative outlet. I mean, mine was obviously this grief book. I also write letters, unsendable ones to people, places. I mean, that was the first thing my therapist had me do, was write an honest, open letter to God and express how I felt. Yeah, I was angry. I'm surprised that every Bible in my house did not catch on fire by some of the things that I said to God. I'm like, God, me and you are not on the same page right now. And literally, probably if I yelled at you and punched you in the face, it still wouldn't do enough for me. But really shedding my emotions and really channeling them into that letter, I'm telling you, it freed my soul. I felt my stomach not feel as heavy from the emotional baggage. And it really helped me find clarity and forgiveness within myself, forgiveness of the circumstance, because I was able to step aside from that victim. Oh, woe is me. Why did this happen to me? God, you took everybody away from me. But God told me, Portia, I needed you back. I needed to bring you to your knees, to bring you back on the path that I wanted you to be on. So we just never know how those circumstances, whether it's grief, in Danielle's case, being hit by a drunk driver, how those situations will place us on a divine path that we needed to be on, but we had to go through a few things in order to acquire the tools to make the path right.
I just want to say, what helps me the most is when I'm facing a real big challenge or something that's very challenging, I try to think back to another challenge in my past, something that happened before, and then it all worked out. It all, as I've always said, come out to be for my greatest good. And so I can look at that and say, well, that worked out, so this will too. So that just helps me looking back on other challenges and how I got through them, knowing that I will too get through this.
Yeah, feeling our feelings. It's so important, and we love to feel the happy feelings, right? We don't ever say, oh, I don't want to feel happy. But when it comes to sadness or those, we're like, no. I lost my dogs over the last several months, and I was talking to Portia and I was crying, of course. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, like, you're sad, cry. And I thought, why do we do that? Why do we apologize for being human and for having emotions? There's the good and the bad, right? Or, the pleasant and the non-pleasant emotions that we're going to have, but that's all part of our human existence.
It is. And like, what fun would it be without it? Like if you were playing a game and you knew you were going to win, like, why would you play the game? Like the fun is in figuring out how, overcoming the challenges, learning what's within you, growing. And like, there's no growth without a little bit of discomfort. And I remember a mentor of mine said to me, Danielle, nothing is good or bad. Mm-hmm. The law of polarity exists on this planet, and that is like things will swing one way to the other, and neither is good or bad. It's sometimes stuff has to shed. Like, you need to, certain friends aren't going to serve you at the next level, right? Like they had a time and a space for this part of your journey. Now at this next step, not that it's better than them or anything. It's just like, now at this next step, this next phase of you, like stuff's going to have to fall away to make room for what's coming. And I think we get so attached to the person that we were. Like I was so identified with who I was before my car accident, like I was a snowboarder. I was, top of my class graduating from university. Like I had a great job. Yeah. I like all of a sudden a car accident happens. I can no longer hang out with friends. I can't produce an income because it couldn't work. Like, all of this stuff, all the things that I thought Danielle were gone. But now I realize, like, holy cow, that was the best thing that's ever happened in my life, because I realized that, whoa, that's all surface level stuff. Like who I am is always here. It's always within me, and like I can create and design whatever reality I want. And that challenge being put in my life, like it happened when I was young. I was 23. Like how incredible, to have that perspective now that's going to serve me in everything in life. I remember when the pandemic came in and everybody was freaking out. And I remember thinking like, it's going to be a breeze. Like, I'm stuck inside. I can't do much. But I was like, but at least I don't have a brain injury, which is how this was last time. So it's like, it never fazed me once. And I thought, wow, okay, well, now I'm in a place where I could help a whole lot of other people get through that, like the psychological stuff that was going on. And I just thought, wow, everything is preparing you in life for the next version and for the stuff that like, you don't know. Like there's just so each one of you on this call that I'm looking at, like, you're going to do so much. The lives you're going to impact. Like, you're making an impact over in Africa, John, Portia, like your book is going to touch people. Like, it's just like, it's incredible. What you go through, you grow through, and just don't have an opinion if it's good or bad. Just go, interesting. Okay, this isn't what I expected. So something better must be in store for me. When a door shuts or whatever happens, okay, like there's a move happening right now. Like something's about to open up.
It's a redirection.
Yes.
Yes. And sometimes, again, when you're going through one of those, like something happens with your car, those annoying things that happen to every one of us at some point or another. I keep my mantra is, this is happening for me, this is happening for me, this is happening for me. And it gets me through, because I'm like, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm just going to be my best self. I'm not going to get flustered. I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to cry. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to deal with it. And, something is going to come from this.
Yes, sometimes I get into that, why is all of this happening? And then I think about what Jesus went through. I mean, good Lord, look what he went through. They beat him, they mocked him, everything in the world, and so then I have to look back at my life and say, well, I guess it's not that bad.
Yeah, I know for me, when life starts to hit me, especially as I mentioned, when the reality that my mom is no longer physically here, I'm like, oh, life isn't fair. I give myself permission to feel. I literally give myself permission to cry, because probably the reason I'm feeling that way again is because I've let myself not feel properly. I haven't let myself give myself permission to grieve. I get caught in that swing of our society prescription narrative that you're only allowed to grieve one day, but then you're supposed to be back to the 9 to 5 tomorrow. And that's not the reality with grief. Grief comes in waves. But like I tell everybody, grief is a process, but it is not permanent.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So, okay, this is so good. Perspective. I think, Stephanie, when you were saying, about Jesus, it is perspective. And that's how, when I think about my children in Africa, I think, perspective. It changes everything. It shifted everything in me, because now I'm able to see everything in my life as a blessing, even if it is a challenge. So, Portia, okay, so when we were talking about grief, and we were talking about, feel your feelings and cry when you feel like crying, like we were given. That's love. Sometimes I cry because I just love something so much. And it doesn't always mean that it's a sad tear. It's just like it's emotion coming out of us. I always envision it like, if you don't feel those feelings and if you don't let those come out and express them, it's like a trash compactor. And you just like keep building and building, and it's going to build up to a place where you're going to burst, or you're going to take it out on other people. You're going to yell at people, scream at people. And so our inner being is really, our outer reactions are really a reflection of our inner souls.
Yeah. And if we need to cry, we have to just be okay with it and understand that it's okay to not be okay sometimes. We are human. We have all emotions, happy, sad, fearful, anger, and we have to allow ourselves to feel those, as Daniel said. And then when you can sit in those feelings and feel that, then you will usually come to your lesson in that.
Whatever. 100%. 100%. And I got to add too, I would rather feel all the emotions than feel nothing at all, because I can share with you from a period in my life, talk about grief. Let's go back 6 years ago. My mental health journey literally took a roller coaster dive down, and I literally was numb of everything, of love, pleasure, sadness. So waking up every day equated to Groundhog Day. It looked like I was looking through a black and white mirror, watching my life unfold as I'm being a peon in a game. I told one of my friends, I described it because I was on so much medication. That's probably was part of the cause of it. I was on so much medication. It was literally like I was a shield from the angry outbursts to my friends, society. But at the same time, that shield had thorns on the inside from the unhealedness within me, the sadness, the guilt, the emotions that were just compacted so far that I was bleeding from the inside out, but I was protecting everybody else from that. And so I would rather feel everything than to feel nothing at all, because to feel nothing at all to me is a prison in itself.
Amen to that.
Another thing I think that we should add is being inspired, finding something you're passionate and purposeful about, because when you create your reality, you want to do it from a place of inspiration and passion and purpose, and all the higher level feelings. So where do you find your inspiration? Stephanie, you can go first, but what kind of things inspire you?
The things that inspire me is music. I love music. And if I'm ever sad or depressed, I can put on one of those Go Get Your Girl songs and get my groove on, and I'm in a totally different vibration. So I love music. That is one of my go-to, my keys to everything is music.
Awesome. Danielle, what about you?
For me, it's nature. So yeah, getting out in nature, I start my day there. If I ever need like a reset, I go outside. But I think like there's beautiful lessons in nature all the time. Like outside of my window that I'm looking at right now, there's a pear tree. And this pear tree got like eaten out by ants. Okay. So like the whole trunk of it just destroyed. And what happened? Well, I'm like watching a new, like brand new trunk shoots up about a foot over, like maybe 6 inches over, and starts coming up. So the tree has just said, all right, guess we're not supposed to go that way. And it's pretty well developed, and now it's starting over here. And I just think like, and the tree doesn't care. The tree's not getting upset. It's just like, all right, well, I got the opportunity to go this way, so I'll go that way. And we'll see what happens over here, And I just think like nature is such a beautiful teacher. And gives me perspective too. You go outside, you look at the stars at night. It's like, we are so tiny in this universe. And it gives me the perspective to go, okay, like whatever I'm going through is not that big of a deal, And like, it puts me back and go, it's like a sigh comes out of me and I go, all right, you got something within you that can face this. Like, what's it going to be? What are you going to choose? And like, a choice isn't permanent. I think that something that I realized with my accident, like it threw me off course, like that was a life event that threw me off course. But I could have at any point like made a choice to leave my job, leave where I was living, go live somewhere else. Like all of us are one choice away from a very different life. Yes. And it's just, we think because we're so used to it, we think that we're stuck, but like you're not, and if you need to get out and make a choice and a shift, like just go do it. They say leap and the net appears. Like you got to take a step. I didn't understand all the laws of this universe too well, but now I study it all the time. And it's like, all we can control is the action we take in the direction we want to go. But how it happens, when it happens, it's not up to us. And that's why I look at nature. Like nature can only control so much. That tree is picked where it's going to live, and it's growing there, and the rest of it, well, it's up to circumstance. But it's just like, it's amazing to me to get those reminders all the time when I'm walking outside. And so that's my inspiration.
I love it.
We're all seeking to grow and evolve, and even a blade of grass will poke through the concrete seeking light.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're here for. We're here to grow and expand.
Yes, yes. Portia, what inspires you?
So I'm probably a little different than everybody, but art. Art seriously pings at my inspiration, whether it's photography, whether it's a painting, whether it's music. It's just art, because there's so many facets to art that we tend to not look at. For example, if you go to a museum and you look at a very detailed painting, there's a message within that painting. And that's what inspires me every day, is those hidden messages. It's the same algorithm for life. We all have that little hidden part within us that keeps us going. It's what I call the little flame. The little flame is an inspiration, where no matter how much darkness is around us, whether it's grief, whether it's, you're overcoming mental wellness obstacles, whether it's transitioning a new job, there's that little flame that keeps you going despite all of the darkness around you. It's going to penetrate through no matter what. So art for me is my inspiration, because there's a story within the story. And the storyteller within me, Dawn, you know this all too well, my inspiration and love for storytelling came from my story not being heard. If my story would have been heard from that psychiatrist who told me my brain was broken, I wouldn't be able to do this, this, and this, I wouldn't be in the true path that I'm on today. So I still extend gratitude for this person for saying that to me, for this person for doing that to me, because my journey of what I went through is somebody else's lifeline, so that way they can potentially stop from going down that dangerous path that I went through, from hearing, oh my God, she overcame this. Oh, she overcame that. I don't have to be a prisoner of this circumstance for an extended period of time. So for me, it's art. Art hands down is inspiration.
Yeah, these are all beautiful. My inspiration is love, whether it's love for my pets or love for my friends or love for my family or love for what I do in the world. I just love love. So that always keeps me inspired, and it gives a purpose and meaning to everything that I do in my life. So I love all of these tips and tricks that you guys have shared with us today. I want to let everybody leave us with a final remark. And I just wanted to add this before, we end the show today. Well, I'll do it after you guys leave us with the final remark, and then I'll have my final remark. Danielle, you can go first.
Ooh, final remark for everyone. I would just remind you, like, whatever triggers you is teaching you. Whatever challenge you have, like, the antidote's within it. And so just get curious about life, be excited by it. Like, what's going to unfold from here? What am I going to learn about myself? And have, like, it's like children, right? They just have this beautiful spirit about how they go about life, and, like, bring that back in. Don't take it so seriously. This is just a game. And, you're going to win if you keep that spirit with it.
Oh, that's beautiful. And Danielle, how can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. So Instagram, Facebook. So on Instagram, it's just my name, Danielle Matthews, but an underscore on either side. And then on Facebook, if you just do facebook.com/discoverintention. And I want to mention this to everybody. I've got a book. You can download it for free on my website. It's brainbodyself.com/ebook. And it's called Mind Control. It's all in your head. so on point for the conversation we've been having today. And if anybody wants to go deeper with that and my thoughts on it through what I went through, that book, I literally wrote it in hopes that it can help somebody else on their journey.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Portia?
My final remarks for everybody, my favorite two. 1, adopt a student for life mentality. Number 2, always ask questions. The answer is always no until you ask.
Ooh, that's so powerful. Thank you. And Portia, mention the name of your book again, and when is it coming out? Just give us a little bit more detail with that.
Yes, so my audio book is called Finding Grace Within Grief, Her Transition, My Transformation. Will make its debut on October the 19th. You can find the trailer on YouTube. If you just type in my name, Portia Booker, Portia Booker, like Booker T. You can watch the trailer for it and let me know your thoughts. It's definitely a divine work that I would have never envisioned would have came from this journey. So I'm really excited.
And we're excited to read it too and hear it. Stephanie, your final thoughts?
I would just say be patient with yourself. And just, understand that we're growing. We don't have everything figured out. We're not supposed to have everything figured out. And that mental health is so important. It's just as, if not more important than your physical health. And it is a lifelong skill set that once you learn, everything just kind of falls into place and into your grace. And so I would just say, be patient with yourself and understand that we're all growing. We're growing as we're growing through what we go through.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, for my final thought, I can speak for, I know Portia and Stephanie for sure, and I'm sure Danielle will say yes to this also. Every time we do a podcast or anytime we, are on a radio show or anything, we always say, you know what, just let me say something that's going to touch somebody's heart, that is going to change somebody's life, that's going to make a difference, because we want to be the change that we wish to see in the world. So thank you for listening. Please subscribe, follow our channels. We want to provide tips and tricks from people from around the world, brilliant minds of great thinkers who really have gone through some stuff and have learned a lot of lessons that they want to share with you, so that your life is easier and better and happier and fuller and full of purpose. So thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you next month.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed these inspiring podcasts, please subscribe. Until next time, stay encouraged.